Madam Chair, we are now live on YouTube.
Thank you, Florence. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 15th meeting of the Community Board 1. The first public hearing item will be Wildflower Studios, 3515 19th Avenue, 210459 ZSQ and 210457 ZAQ and N210458 ZAQ 210460 ZCQ. Who is doing the presenting tonight? Is it Ms. Scow or Mr. De Niro?
Sure. I'll go ahead and share my screen and then Raphael will kick us off. Thank you. Oh, I just need permission to share.
Bear with me one moment, please.
Thank you.
Please share.
All right. Raphael, if you want to start us off.
Thank you, Rachel. Good evening. My name is Raphael De Niro. Along with my partner, Adam Gordon, we're part of the development team for the project before you this evening. Adam and I are both multi-generational native New Yorkers, and we're particularly excited about the potential of this project happening in New York City, which is a city that we love and care a lot about, and especially in light of what we've all experienced with the pandemic over the last 18 months, we feel that the timing couldn't be better than now. Just to give you a little kind of rough background on the project or the proposed project, we're proposing an approximately 495,000 square foot, 7-story production studio to be located at the western end of 19th Avenue between the Steinway Piano Factory and Oyster Creek. We're seeking discretionary approvals from city planning in order to construct the proposed studio. Our team is here today to review the project and answer any questions that you all may have. And with that, I'd like to pass it to Tracy Coffin, our architect from Bjarke Ingels Group.
Thank you, Raphael. And thank you everyone for having us tonight. I am Tracy Coffin. I'm a senior project architect from Bjarke Ingels Group, and I can share a little bit about our design of the project with you. So as was stated, this is going to be a film production studio. We have 11 sound stages that we are locating on the site. They're roughly 120 feet by 150 feet by 60 feet tall to provide, what is expected of industry standards. So this is the general arrangement of how they are stacked around the site. And then on the next slide, you can see what we've done is we provided a ground floor where we've raised those stages up. And what this has done has not only lifted the stages up to provide assistance for flood mitigation strategies, since we are in a flood zone, but it's also helped move the parking and loading and logistical requirements of the building within the building below the sound stages. And on the next page, you can see how that connects to all these elevators that will bring everything, including people, set design, all those elements up into the stage to support those spaces. From there, what we did programmatically was wedged between all those sound stages. We located all the support programs. So this is a strata of different carpentry shops, dressing rooms, office spaces, different things to support each production, local to each stage, and kind of wedged to make a very compact building on the site. In addition to those programs, we've also provided some programs for the building at large. We have the entry lobbies as well as some commissary and common spaces to provide for those within the building as well. And then from there, this is the overall kind of massing of the project. And what it's done is we've been able to pull the facade back to provide a couple public access areas, one along 19th Avenue and one along the waterfront. And then here's a rendering from the creek looking toward the facade of the building. The building From the ridge line of that roof is about 145 feet above the grade, and the top of bulkhead is roughly 160 feet above grade. What we've done is we've also clad the building in a precast facade. This is a really great facade for the project because it brings a lot of acoustical properties to support the function of the sound stages. And to break down to the scale, we've also played with the material in terms of texture and pattern. So it has a little bit of a kind of one-to-one scale to break it down from the street front all the way up to the top of the building. We've also introduced glazing along the facade to provide daylight for those programs that are allowed to have daylight within the building. And to top it all off, we've provided an entire rooftop of PV to provide energy and support some of the functions within the building. From there, to talk about a lot of the exterior works, I'll pass it along to our landscape architect, Britt.
Thank you, Tracy. My name is Britt Zuckerman. I'm a senior landscape architect with Dirtworks Landscape Architecture. I'm very excited, so thank you guys for having us tonight. We are proposing 2 public open spaces in association with the studio. About 4,200 square feet of open space along 19th Avenue and 30,600 square feet of open space along the Leicester Creek shoreline. In response to comments we received from the Parks Department, we are proposing to use park standard benches, the 1964 World's Fair bench, within the 19th Avenue public space. This will indicate that to the public that this is an area that's open for everyone's use and it's welcoming to all. The 19th Avenue public space will create an almost 20-foot wide pedestrian boulevard-like experience on 19th Avenue with central plantings and a unique paving treatment within the property line. The 19th Avenue landscaping and design will lead pedestrians down the street to the entrance of the WPA, which will be marked by landscaping signage, really clearly indicating that the waterfront is an area open and welcoming to the public. There are a number of unique educational opportunities throughout the waterfront area, including informational signage and habitat features. We worked with an ecologist to confirm species that one would expect to see at the site, while also referencing citizen scientists' bird sightings at Leicester Creek. And the educational signage will feature unique graphics and information about the plantings and the species that one could expect to see in this park. All of our plantings really serve a purpose beyond being just aesthetic. The plant communities will support local pollinators, birds, while also being drought tolerant. All the plantings are in bioswales, so they're selected to survive inundation from flooding and stormwater runoff, which is particularly important, as Tracy mentioned, we're in a floodplain. We developed the understory plantings to thrive in these site conditions, as well as for successional bloom time. The vertical chart next to each planting is going to show that there should be something of interest, botanic interest, each month of the year. And several of these plants will also serve as phytoremediators, cleaning stormwater before it passes to CSOs or Leicester Creek and purifying the air. Unfortunately, physical access to Leicester Creek creates a safety issue at this site due to the low tides and the pollution from the city's nearby combined sewer. However, we understand from the committee and the Astoria Waterfront Vision Plan that visual access to the creek is also extremely important, and the centerpiece of the WPA is this overlook, which extends directly to the shoreline and will provide views across Leicester Creek and up to the East River. And from within the WPA, there's additional seating areas and landscape framing a variety of secondary view sheds. The wood deck overlook allows safe visual access to the water, and the interior plant pocket will provide a quiet back to the visitors while also breaking up some of the large permeable space. If you have any questions, please let me know. But with that, I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Rachel. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Skull, and I'm associate at Greenberg Charig. We are the Land Use Council handling the city planning application for this project. The first action we are seeking in the city planning application is a bulk special permit affecting height and setback, the length of walls facing the shoreline, and ground floor streetscape requirements. So for base height and setback, as of right at a height of 60 feet above the flood elevation, we would be required to set the building back within the pink areas you see here. One waiver we are seeking would allow the building to continue straight up in those areas to the full building height. We are also seeking building height waivers. As of right, we could construct a building with a roof line 110 feet above the flood elevation with a bulkhead 140 feet above the flood elevation. And we are proposing a building with a roof line 135 feet above the flood elevation with a bulkhead 150 feet above the flood elevation. In addition, I mentioned length of walls facing the shoreline. The zoning resolution actually limits for buildings 60 feet tall or taller. It limits the length of walls facing a shoreline to 100 feet. We are seeking a waiver of that to have the building of the size that we're showing here. You can see the waivers there in blue. And then in addition, there's a provision in the zoning resolution that would require the ground floor of our building fronting on 19th Avenue and Steinway Creek to each be 50% filled by floor area. We are requesting a waiver to reduce this requirement so that the ground floor of our building can be dedicated to parking and loading space, which is not defined as floor area in the zoning resolution. That will allow us to pull all of the building's parking and loading off of the street, and it gives us a pedestal to put the occupiable spaces on above the flood elevation. We are also seeking 2 authorizations. The site is part of a combined zoning lot with the Steinway Piano Factory site. We are seeking an authorization that would reduce the amount of area to be provided as waterfront public open space because the combined zoning lot's full shoreline is located on the Wildflower Studios development site. We are also seeking an authorization to modify design requirements within the waterfront public open space, mainly to account for a design's ecological focus. These modifications would not reduce the amount of seatings or tables required by the zoning resolution and would not affect ADA accessibility. Finally, we are seeking a certification of the City Planning Commission Chair to confirm that our resulting site plan complies with the zoning resolution as modified. We are aware that a big concern of the community board is that the street end of 19th Avenue does not get left behind as improvements are made in the surrounding area. Just to review a little bit of context here. So this is a map showing the neighborhood context. You have Wildflower Studios right there at the bottom with its shoreline highlighted in green. You have 2 sites outlined in yellow that are being acquired by the Department of Sanitation for its garage and salt shed. Then highlighted in blue, there is a shoreline adjacent to what will be DSNY's main access drive. We're not clear right now who will control that shoreline. And then of course you have the 19th Avenue street end with the red line that you see between the yellow and green. Alteration to the street end raises a number of concerns, which we hope we can work through with the community board, our future neighbor DSNY, and a number of city and state agencies that would be involved in the process. To that end, Wildflower would like to contribute time from our consultants, including us at Greenberg Charig, our landscape architect Dirtworks, and our waterfront consultant TMS to work with the community board to develop a plan for the street end and to coordinate with the various government agencies involved. We believe that as a team, we can make a significant improvement to the street end. And now I'm going to turn it over to Shay Thorvaldson from TMS to discuss what it would take to get there.
Thanks, Rachel. My name is Shay Thorvaldson from TMS Waterfront, who is the permitting, resiliency, and waterfront consultant for the project. The 19th Avenue street end falls under the jurisdiction of several different agencies. It's technically part of the map's 19th Avenue, which means it would be owned by the city DOT. DOT's main concern here so far has been safety, and they have asked that we replace the existing Jersey barrier at the terminus of the paved street. In addition, of course, the FDNY requires the 19th Avenue roadway be at least 72.4 feet wide at its base in order to accommodate a fire truck turnaround. Additionally, based on survey information and aerial photos, the street end between the Jersey barrier and the creek falls within the State Department of Environmental Conservation's tidal wetlands jurisdiction. Almost anything we would do here, including the removal of existing plant matter, would require some form of DEC approval. That being said, if we were to work with the city to obtain a DEC permit in the area, there are a lot of options for what could be accomplished here. In analyzing those options, we also need to account for the city's Department of Environmental Protection. The DEP, as everyone knows, is responsible for maintaining the existing combined sewer outfall, CSO, that runs under the street end and deposits into the creek. DEP generally reserves an easement of 5 to 10 feet from the CSO's pipe edge out to either side of the pipe to ensure that they have the space they need to maintain their infrastructure. Coordination would be required to ensure no improvements to the street end prevent DEP from accessing and maintaining the CSO. We understand the community board is doing its own work to push for improvements to the street end, and that many of you have been working on this for quite some time. Certainly TMS and the Wildflower team will be happy to join the efforts in improving the space. And then from there, I'd like to pass to Raphael to continue to discuss.
Thank you, Shay. The proposed studio would create more than 1,000 well-paying jobs on site, and we expect that the studio will have a ripple effect on the surrounding community, bringing people to the area to support local restaurants, businesses, and the hospitality industry. We have received support from former council member Constantinides, IATSE, and the Teamsters, and have had very positive conversations with the borough president. We want to thank the Land Use Committee for taking the time to meet with us throughout the first half of this year and for their positive recommendation on the application. We hope the community board will support this application, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Okay. I will turn it over right now to Elizabeth Evian or Jerry Caliendo to see if the committee had any further questions.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Listening to this presentation, which is, I think now the fourth time we've heard the presentation, it's met at least my expectations and also responded to all of the issues that had been brought up, or at least most of the issues that had been brought up during the course of the 3 presentations we had since January or February. The committee had, I think the committee had voted at its last meeting on June 2nd to, let me get this, to approve the project and requesting Wildflower Studios be a participant in the efforts of the community to proceed with improving 19th Avenue and the approach to the waterfront, and also increasing the waterfront area, access area around 19th Avenue towards the sanitation site. We also appreciate the fact that they are willing to work with us to talk with the agencies that are involved, and we will be in touch, so to speak. So we don't have anything else to add to the presentation unless Jerry wants to make a comment, an additional comment. Co-chair Jerry Caliendo.
I don't have any additional comment other than I thought it was a well thought out concept, and it'll be great for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank
Agreed.
you.
Much.
We have some questions. Richard Guzami.
Yes, first of all, I wanted to say that I agree. This is quite a project between jobs and between the development of the area. I think it's going to be great, positive for the neighborhood. One thing I'd like to reiterate also is I think that your concept of logistically of doing your loading and unloading on the first floor, meets a lot of needs. It's innovative. And I really appreciate the fact that you're bringing that pressure off of 19th Avenue and you're bringing it within the building footprint itself. I think it's a very, very smart way to move on this. And the also thing I wanted to mention is that the waiver on the setback, people should understand that the reason you wanted this is because there is a requirement to be a certain number of feet from the edge of the creek, which is not a straight line. So if you look back at that page in the presentation, you'll see that they are, the reason you want it isn't so much that you want to increase your area, you just need to have a straight line edge of the building. You can't have the building going in and out because that just will not be functional. So I don't really see it as something that's actually out there to increase bulk. It's more there to make the existing bulk useful. So okay, I
Thank
just
you.
want to express that. Thank you.
Diana Limanji.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for, I thought it was a very thorough presentation. I have a question about the well-paying jobs. I imagine that anything that's movie production is going to be union jobs. But I want to make sure that everything that is janitorial are also going to be union jobs. I think it's really important that when we say well-paying, not only is it above minimum wage, which, as you probably know, minimum wage living in Astoria is really hard to do. And also, that anybody that's working in those janitorial jobs has access to healthcare benefits and paid sick time and all of those things. So I think that that's really, really important. And I see someone in the chat saying 32BJ. Yes, my family, I grew up as a 32BJ kid, so I feel a need to advocate for the janitorial workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Christina Lastres.
Hi, thank you everyone who presented. I thought it was a great presentation. I just had some general questions or considerations about the area, I guess, outside of business hours. So I actually live on 20th Avenue and 36th Street, so fairly close to where this project is taking place. And the general area is typically used by drag racing, especially 19th Avenue, and the Lytle parking lot tends to be an area for congregating for a lot of people, especially after the close of business hours. So I was just curious if anyone had considered what security would be at the waterfront, considering what's sort of been going on at the Long Island City waterfront. I'm just concerned that this might become like a secondary Long Island City waterfront situation that we've been seeing lately. And also if anyone has considered additional parking for employees. I know there are a lot of city bike stations that have been added, but just curious if anyone has taken that into consideration as part of the proposal.
With
Sure.
somebody from the waterfront. Go ahead, Rachel.
Sorry. Sure. So let me answer your parking question quickly, and then we'll move on to the waterfront security. So in terms of parking, we made sure to study from the beginning and plan for from the beginning what the parking requirement would be here. We actually went out and studied another studio in the city to make sure that the demand that we were anticipating was accurate and we would have sufficient parking. So we are providing 310 parking spaces within the building. And based on our studies, we believe that should be definitely enough to meet the peak demand at this building. We're also providing the 26 loading berths within the building so that doesn't take place on the street. Going back to your first question about security, we know that the waterfront public open space will be closed for some period overnight. We're working with city planning and the Department of Parks to figure out the exact hours. The zoning resolution permits closure from dusk till dawn. We're trying to stay open a little later than dusk, but we want to make sure that we're balancing security with access. In terms of more general security, I'll let Raphael, if you want to speak to that a bit more.
Sure, thank you, Rachel. There will be a network of security cameras as well as actual physical security person. When you're talking about a studio in particular, there are a lot of sensitivities around piracy and certain other privacy concerns. So this has to be a very secure building in order for people to feel comfortable shooting content. And that's going to extend to the waterfront public area as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Antonella Di Severio.
Okay, I heard someone say that there was going to that you guys were going to reduce access to the shoreline. Can you explain that further? Because what we need is more access to open green space, and that's what we're fighting for. My second question is, have you done the soil samples in that area, and what were the results? What commitment do you have in maintaining that public access area by the sewer outfall, where the cross is at the end of, I think you know what where it's, you know, where the sewer outfall is, that area is like an open area that people, you know, we've been cleaning up that area, a bunch of us. And so I think it would be nice to know what commitment you can make to help maintain that area. And my last question is, sorry for all the questions, will you be using the waterway for your productions, the actual water space, and where there's like a pier kind of structure out there? And if you are, will you help maintain that neck area of where the waterway is, that it's that the tip point of where the waterway ends? I know it's a lot of questions, but.
Okay, starting from the beginning, and I'll let you know if I need you to repeat any of them. But first, we'll start with, you mentioned reducing access. We're not trying to reduce access here. We're trying to make sure there is access to the waterfront, which is why we're constructing this waterfront public open space. I think what you're referring to is one of the authorizations we're seeking. The zoning resolution requires that 15% of a zoning lot be provided as public open space. Here, our zoning lot includes us and the existing Steinway Piano Factory, but the full shoreline is on our site. So if we were to provide 15% of the zoning lot as public access, we would lose a huge portion of our buildable site. Whereas Steinway Piano Factory on their own actually wouldn't be required to provide any public access pursuant to the zoning resolution, because they're an industrial use in an industrial, or in a manufacturing district rather. So what we're doing is we're providing, rather than 15% of the zoning lot, 15% of our development site, we are providing as public access. So that is our goal there. That was question number one. I'm gonna go.
The soil sample was the.
I'm gonna go back to the soil sample because I'm gonna have someone else on my team speak to that. Let me skip to your question about the area around the sewer outfall. So that is the 19th Avenue street end that we were just discussing. That area is not on our property, and there are so many city agencies and state agencies involved. We think it's owned by DOT because it's part of the MAP public street. DEP obviously has the outfall there. We have the State Department of Environmental Conservation. And so what we're proposing to do is, along with the community board, work with those agencies and our new neighbor, DSNY, Department of Sanitation. We want to give our consultants hours, and our team wants to be able to work with you and your team, DSNY and their team, to make sure that we have the best result we can have there, so that that area doesn't get left behind as not only wildflowers develop, but also as hopefully DSNY is doing something along their shoreline as well. Okay, now soil borings. I believe we've got Alex Lieber or Lisa Lau from AKRF, their environmental consultants, on the line. And if I could get you guys to just give a quick summary of what we did in terms of soil borings.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alex Lieber. I'm with AKRF. As Rachel mentioned, we're the environmental consultants for the project. I also live on Crescent Street, and I appreciated the comment earlier about the drag racing. I hear those cars most nights. So AKRF prepared the environmental assessment statement, the EAS, for this project, which has been reviewed and approved by the city agencies. And in connection with the EAS, what's called a phase 2 assessment was done concerning the potential hazardous materials on the site. That included taking soil samples. There were a total of 15 soil samples that were taken. And also soil vapor was monitored as part of that phase 2 assessment. The results of that assessment found that there were potential contaminants of semi-volatile organic compounds called SVOCs, which is generally found in urban fill, which is really what is going on in this site, is urban fill. And so as a result of that, and in connection with EAS, A remedial action plan, it's called a RAP, and also a construction health and safety plan, it's called a CHASP, were prepared and submitted to the Department of City Planning and Department of Environmental Protection. So those documents lay out the remediation and protection measures that are going to be incorporated into this project. In particular, there will be a vapor barrier that is going to be required to be installed underneath the foundation of the building to deal with potential soil vapor contamination.
Thank you, Alex. And then the final question was whether we would be using the waterway for any productions. I don't believe that's the case, but Raphael, if you want to speak to that at all.
I apologize, I have sirens outside of my office. There is no plan to use the waterfront for anything production related or anything related to the proposed studio. The tides are pretty extreme. If you've looked over there, depending on the time of day, it really becomes just muck. So even if you were to try to use it, you would be very restricted or limited on when you could get anything in and out of the creek.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Rich Waxman.
Hi, everyone. First, Raphael, I would like to tell you that there are still pictures of your dad in bakeries and delis all over 30th Avenue from when he was here shooting A Bronx Tale. So I just wanted to welcome the family back to Astoria. We've missed you.
Thank you. Best summer of my life. I worked as a production assistant, gluing clamshells together as a prop for a seafood storefront. I think I was 17.
You know, I think you got a free hero at Sarisso's if you show up.
Definitely.
Secondly, I just wanted to say to my fellow board members at Newtown Creek Alliance, which is a nonprofit I'm a board member of that's along a similarly polluted waterway just to the south of Astoria. We often work with a Hollywood production company called Broadway Stages, and they've been great partners environmentally, and they've been really community minded. So I can officially say, you know, Hollywood and the environment go very well together. The issue that I saw that are still in the same renderings revolve around that riprap hard edge that Dirtworks is showing in their drawing of the waterfront. I brought this up in one of the committee meetings we had, but I just wanted to get that into the official record that we really want to see a soft edge there as opposed to a hard one for the environmental benefit of it. And if there's any way we can arrive at that, that would be better for us, for the critters, for the water, and so on. And also, I just wanted to let the Wildflower team know that both LaGuardia Community College and Hudson Riverkeeper are interested in participating in this process. And if you contact me through Florence, I can make connections between your team and theirs. But I didn't really have a question. It was just a series of statements. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Diana, do you feel you didn't receive an answer to your question?
I gave my thoughts on the union. I didn't get a confirmation as to whether the janitorial and security staff, which somebody also mentioned, would be union. So I'd like just to know
Rachel
from the studios.
Sure. Raphael, are you able to speak to that?
I don't think I'm prepared to speak to that now. We have not even contemplated any type of staffing at this point because we don't know what we're building yet. But I appreciate you raising it. I think it's a valid concern and question, and I will address it with all of my partners immediately.
Thank you. And also, of course, hiring local would also, of course, be important.
And that I know we have begun to do. We're seeking ICAP benefits for this project, and one of the requirements in order to achieve ICAP benefits is to tap the local community, particularly for construction jobs. If I'm not mistaken, Rachel, please correct me, but that was my understanding.
Sure.
If there are additional vendors or subcontractors that anybody would like to suggest, we're happy to add them to the list, and now would be a good time to start talking to them.
Thank you. Is
Yeah, Richard, this is Richard. I just wanted to mention really quickly that in fact, we have actually already been working with them in terms of finding local trades. And it's been moving ahead. So this is something from the beginning that we've been looking for. So.
Thank you,
Okay.
Richard. Does any member of the public have a question? Please use the raise hand function if you do. Okay, seeing none, thank you so much for this very thorough presentation. This will be voted on during the business section of the meeting. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone, for your time this evening.
Thank you. Next item, a public hearing item is Health and Fitness Citywide Text Amendment, N210382CRY. Sabi Tarkin, will you be doing that presentation?
I will. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I will get started in just a second. So good evening, everyone. I'm Sarit Platkin, the planner for Astoria at the Department of City Planning. Tonight, I'll be discussing the Citywide Health and Fitness Text Amendment, a proposal to reduce zoning barriers for gyms, spas, and massage therapy studios. So I'll first off provide some background and history of the issues and the need for the proposal, and then dive into the proposal itself. So there is currently a BSA special permit that is required to open any gyms, spas, licensed massage therapy studios, as well as a range of other health and fitness facilities in New York City. The process of obtaining this permit is extremely costly for businesses, both in time and money. Even if businesses wanted to apply for a special permit, they are not allowed along many local commercial streets, including areas where we allow other service and retail amenities today. Finally, these businesses have been hurt significantly by the pandemic, and we want to ensure that they can open and meet neighborhood demand for health-related amenities going forward. Health and fitness facilities include a range of activities that we're well aware of, including larger gyms, such as Blink or Planet Fitness, smaller studios, such as martial arts, yoga, or aerobics, and there also include a range of therapeutic and wellness businesses, such as spas and licensed massage therapy studios. During the 1970s, a special permit was created that required most health and fitness related businesses to undergo criminal background checks from the Department of Investigations before receiving approval to operate. This was in response to concerns about commercial sex operations within businesses described as health clubs or massage parlors. At the time that this was created, New York City didn't have the wide range of commercial gyms and other fitness activities that we're all now very familiar with. There were some large nonprofit health clubs like the YMCA and community centers.
Are we planning to have dinner here for
can you mute, please?
Please mute.
So there were some, no problem. So just kicking off with that again. So at the time that this special permit was created, New York City didn't have the wide range of commercial gyms and other fitness facilities that we're now very familiar with. There were some large nonprofit health clubs like the YMCA and community centers that offered exercise classes, but it was never considered that hundreds of overwhelmingly legitimate businesses like martial arts, Pilates, yoga, rock climbing, and indoor cycling studios would need to get special permissions to operate. Things have changed a lot in the 4+ decades since this special permit was created. In addition to the significant growth of the health and fitness industry and the desire for communities to access these amenities, regulations around massage therapy have changed as well. Massage therapists are licensed health professionals by the New York State Education Department, and a registry of all licensed massage therapists is publicly available online. Yet, these businesses continue to be uniquely regulated through zoning, placing significant burdens on small businesses. On average, the special permit takes more than 6 months to be granted and often costs small businesses $30,000 to $50,000 in fees to architects and attorneys to go through the process. In addition, the special permit is not applicable in most C1 commercial overlay districts, meaning that gym spas and other wellness facilities are not allowed where we allow other retail and commercial uses like restaurants, laundromats, and grocery stores. Finally, at a time when vacancy rates are high along some commercial streets, we want to ensure that our zoning allows businesses to occupy this space. Over the past 2 decades, special permits for gyms and spas have been disproportionately concentrated in the Manhattan Central Business District and Western Brooklyn and Queens. By making it easier to open these businesses, we're hoping that it will be especially impactful for smaller independent businesses to open farther from the core of the city and serve more neighborhoods citywide. This proposal is also consistent with recommendations of major strategic plans that the city has developed over the past several years. Both One NYC, the city's sustainability plan, and Small Businesses First, the city's small business plan, recommended removing these special permit requirements to promote public health in communities and support small businesses. Over the past several years, the special permit requirements have been removed as part of the neighborhood zoning changes, and this proposal is expanding this policy citywide. Businesses in the health and fitness sector have been severely impacted by the pandemic, with many businesses reducing staff or closing, either temporarily or permanently. Between 2019 and 2020, employment in the fitness and recreation sectors dropped by more than 60% in New York City. As the industry continues to recover, we want to ensure that zoning does not pose excessive barriers that prevent businesses from being able to meet the demand for these services in communities. DCP is proposing to remove the BSA special permit for all gyms, spas, and licensed massage therapy studios, which are referred to as physical culture or health establishments in the zoning resolution. Gyms and spas would be considered commercial uses that would be allowed as of right. Smaller gyms and spas, those less than 10,000 square feet, would be allowed in all commercial and manufacturing districts, including C1 districts where gyms are not currently allowed. Gyms and spas that are unlimited in size would be slightly more limited in geography, allowed in our highest C1 districts that are primarily in Manhattan, as well as C2 districts and higher, and manufacturing districts. This distinction between the smaller uses under 10,000 square feet and those larger is consistent with the way commercial uses are treated within zoning, such as clothing or furniture stores. Licensed massage therapy will be treated in the same way as other outpatient medical uses, such as doctor's offices in zoning. This will be categorized as either ambulatory healthcare or healthcare offices. This will allow licensed massage therapy studios or community facilities in most residence districts, except the lowest density R1 and R2 districts, as well as commercial and manufacturing districts. Massage is illegal to practice without a license, and unlicensed massage will continue to be not allowed as a use anywhere in New York City, according to the proposed zoning. When the BSA reviews applications for gyms, they occasionally impose conditions to address community concerns about noise and vibrations that can result from activities such as dropping weights or using exercise equipment in unison. To continue to address these concerns, the proposal will also include additional performance standards for noise and vibration. A subset of higher impact gyms will need to have an acoustical engineer certify with the Department of Buildings that the facility is designed to meet these performance standards before they receive a certificate of occupancy. These provisions will apply in mixed buildings in commercial and MX districts. Lower impact facilities such as yoga, isometric exercise, and therapeutic services such as spas will not need to demonstrate compliance with these noise vibration performance standards, but will be subject to the New York City Noise Code. The next few slides show where these regulations are going to apply in Community District 1. So this slide shows where the smaller gyms and spas under 10,000 square feet would be permitted in Astoria. The orange areas show where these uses were permitted previously, but required a BSA special permit, and now will be permitted as of right. They include moderate density commercial districts along 31st Street, Steinway, Broadway, and 30th Avenue, as well as manufacturing zones, such as the Steinway Astoria IBZ and Long Island City IBZ. The purple areas show where these uses would now be permitted where they weren't before, which is primarily in commercial areas along East-West Avenues, such as Ditmars, 30th Avenue, 31st Avenue, and Broadway. Larger gyms above 10,000 square feet would also now be permitted in the orange areas and would no longer require a BSA special permit. These areas include moderate density commercial districts and manufacturing zones. Lastly, licensed massage parlors would have a wider applicability within the purple areas you see here, which include commercial and residential districts. I want to emphasize again that these facilities require a New York State license to operate and would be regulated at both the city and state level. In summary, the proposed text amendment would permit gyms and spas as of right in locations where they are permitted today, and will also permit them on new commercial corridors where they are not permitted today. And licensed massage studios will be permitted in most commercial, industrial, and residential districts pending approval from New York State. So this is where we are now. The Health and Fitness Text Amendment certified on May 17th, and the Community Board will have 60 days to review the proposal and provide recommendations. The deadline for Community Board referral will be July 27th, 2021. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Suresh. Elizabeth or Jerry, did the committee have any other questions?
I have none.
No, I have none either.
Does any other board member have a question? Brian Romero?
Thank you, Chair. Just to be clear then, and I asked during the committee meeting when this was first presented, this amendment would mean that the construction of these gyms and massage parlors and such would not be brought to the CB and instead would be approved for the other processes. Is that correct?
That is correct. So gyms and spas would no longer undergo a special permit. They would be able to proceed as of right to the Department of Buildings, where they would need to apply for building permits pursuant to New York City zoning and building code, and proceed like other commercial uses would. The one exception to that, in terms of kind of a more atypical process, is those gyms that are considered the high impact gyms. So those have the special noise regulations and would be held to higher performance standards enforced by Department of Buildings, but that's correct. They would no longer need to come before the community board for approval.
And just as a follow-up, the history of those particular businesses having to come to CBs for approval, does that have to do with those previous unlicensed massage parlors, or is there another reason for that?
That's right. So in the 1970s, when this special permit was enacted, there was, a much less robust kind of framework in place for licensing massage parlors, which is now in place. It's enforced by the Mayor's Office of Special Operations, as well as the Mayor's Office of Gender-Based Violence, in addition to the Department of Buildings. So there are several entities that kind of work together to ensure that only businesses that are licensed are operating in New York City.
Thank you, Sri. Amin Mehdi?
Yes, thank you for bringing this to the community board. Is that going to be for the permanent, or is for only for the pandemic time? That's the question that I have.
Great question. So yes, this is a permanent change, but definitely kind of responding in part to some of the kind of business impacts that we've been seeing during the pandemic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dominic Stiller.
Hey, thank you. I just want to, for you to clarify, please. You were saying that this will be allowed in all residential zones except R1 and R2. But I think, do you mean to say that it will be allowed in the commercial overlays in these districts and not physically in an R3 and an R4 house? Like, we're not going to see gyms springing up mid-block in R3 zones and R4 zones. Can you clarify that? And can you also tell us what use group these two sizes of gyms are?
Sure.
Thank you.
So yeah, that actually the answers to those two questions go hand in hand. So the gyms and spas under 10,000 square feet are definitely not going to be permitted. So gyms in general are not permitted in residential districts. When I mentioned residential, that was only in reference to the licensed massage therapy studios, which will be treated like doctor's offices, which, as you know, are permitted in residential districts. But let's focus on the gyms for now, and we can talk about that next. So in terms of gyms under 10,000 square feet are considered use group 6, which is the standard sort of retail use group that, you know, most restaurants and stores belong to, that are under 10,000 square feet. They'll be permitted on these areas in orange. So you see 31st, you see sections of, you know, Broadway. What's new here, and then of course manufacturing zones, what's new here is that these areas in purple, those are the areas where they will be newly permitted. So in orange, gyms are already allowed there with the special permit. They'll just be allowed there without the special permit now. What's new is these areas in purple, which are areas with commercial overlays. So that's the smaller size gyms. The larger gyms, over 10,000 square feet, these will be considered use group 9, which is a use group that a lot of kind of larger commercial uses do fall under, and that is what gyms are currently considered today. So the change is that they're also now going to be permitted in this smaller size use group. So within use group 9, at the 10,000 square feet or larger, there are no changes of where gyms are permitted. The only change is that where they're permitted today, these kind of moderate density commercial districts, they're going to be permitted as of right without a special permit.
So just to clarify, because you keep saying in residential zones, so technically you're kind of talking about the white areas there.
No, so residential zones is
I know you're saying this, but right?
No, I actually wasn't saying residential zones, and I was going to get to that next. The only change in residential zones is for licensed massage therapy studios. And the change is what you see in purple here. These are residential areas. On this map, the white areas are completely unaffected. And same on this map, the white areas are completely unaffected. The affected areas are orange and purple, which are commercial and industrial zones. And same here. So for gyms, the only affected areas are commercial and industrial zones. The exception to that are the licensed massage therapy studios, which are now going to be allowed in residential districts as well, the way a doctor's office would be.
So regarding that, will that be like tied to the deed? Will it be the FAR of the residential zone? Like, how will that be different than a residential house? You say that, of course, every massage therapist has to be licensed, and I understand that, but how will it show up on the C of O in these houses?
Yeah, so it would show up. So this is going to be considered a use group 4, which is a community facility use, and that is permitted in these residential districts today. So there's actually no change to the underlying zoning. There's no change to the underlying floor area or density permitted. The only change is that now in these areas where community facilities are permitted, so things like outpatient medical services, one of the uses on that list, in addition to doctors' offices, dentist offices, we'll be adding one more, which is licensed massage therapy.
But they do get an increased FAR for
they do not
use.
Okay, so that's in select districts. That's not across the board.
Oh,
that's not in every district. And actually, I think in most of this area, which would have been rezoned to contextual zones under the 2010 Astoria rezoning, into contextual districts, there's no community facility FAR bonus. So I don't think that's something to focus on here. In non-contextual districts like R5, which do cover some of the areas here, that would apply, but that's not across the board.
Thank you, Sri. Kathleen Warnock. Kathleen?
Takes me a second to unmute. I actually wanted to say I think this is an excellent idea because I'm someone who's taken advantage of the licensed bodywork in my neighborhood with the Tuina parlor, and it can be literally a third of the cost of some of the more expensive spas and treatment facilities around. So I'd like to see where, I guess for one, it will increase small businesses in the area, but I also think as a health benefit, it will reach far more people if we do stuff like this than if people have to continue to go through the extra process for licensed therapeutic bodywork.
Thank you. Mitch Waxman?
Hi. I have to say I'm a little disturbed at the idea of increasing without community board participation the amount of commercial rents that could be paid in a neighborhood that already has an abundance of empty storefronts on Steinway Street, Broadway, Ditmars, large footprint businesses. Also, I resent the idea that you found another way to chip away at the industrial zones and to start inserting other businesses into the blue collar union laborer neighborhoods. And I have to say also, I understand when y'all are at City Hall and you spread the maps out on the mahogany desks and you look at the map of our neighborhood, you say to yourself, yeah, it's going to be a licensed masseuse, New York State. And if it's a problem, don't worry, NYPD will deal with it. You know something? The thing is, when you put a massage parlor in the middle of an industrial zone, 731 and Local 54 ain't going for back rugs. That's what I have to say.
That's inappropriate, Mitch. Sarit, would you like to answer that?
I think I would just like to highlight that these are areas, I just want to underscore that these uses are already permitted as of right, or sorry, they're already permitted in industrial areas. So we're not changing which uses are permitted in industrial areas. It's true that these are now going to be permitted as of right without a special permit, but want to really highlight that this isn't a new use for industrial areas. I think that's really important to highlight. And as far as commercial rents, I don't think I understood the question about commercial rents. But I think, we think that this is going to, likely support small businesses. This isn't, again, changing the underlying zoning, underlying density that would affect overall amount of commercial use permitted anywhere.
Thank you. Excuse me, Mitch.
Okay.
Did you have another question?
Well, I just wanted to clarify that we have a terrific amount of commercial real estate stock that is currently awaiting lessees and economic activity. And any opportunity from City Hall to drive any of these physical culture institutions toward renting the existing empty space we already have is something that I feel duty bound on behalf of the neighborhood to demand.
Thank you. Dan Alabodi?
Yeah, I want a little clarification. Is this to say that none of these establishments will ever come before the community boards for approval?
They will not come before the community board for approval. That is correct.
Thank you.
Tom Ryan?
Yeah, I wanted to make a couple clarifications. First of all, when we talk about a license, it's a licensed massage therapist, not a masseuse or a massage parlor or anything like that. Second of all, a lot of these massage therapists are small businesses and can operate just like a doctor's office, a barber on a residential floor as part of that building. You see that all over Astoria. So this is really nothing new. And I don't think we're going to create any kind of situation where things were out of hand in the 70s. That's a way back policy. So I think it's a good thing, and I believe it does support small businesses who would have a hard time paying the rents in some of the commercial strips. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. Rich Guzami?
Yeah, Sarah, could you explain to people so they have a better idea for exactly how much in time and in funding these institutions will save by not having to go through a special permit process or
sure
to a Euler process? Like, give people an idea of what we're really talking about here.
Yeah, sure. So, the special permit process is a special permits going through the BSA. We mentioned previously kind of $30,000 to $50,000 to hire consultants to kind of take these businesses kind of through the process. The kind of special permit process itself often kind of would be a 1.5-year process typically. So quite an extended period to both kind of put together the application, put together all of the drawings, and then also take it before BSA and, before the community board and the period of public review. So, right now we're changing it from kind of a 1.5 years and 50,000, a 1.5 years, I would say at best. That's the fastest, and $50,000 to kind of the standard DOB.
You were being very optimistic.
I think you are right. I was being very optimistic, but I would say that's the fastest, but could easily be extended beyond that.
Thank you, Sari. Does any member of the public have a question?
I do. You're on mute, Crystal. I have a chat. Can I speak?
Can you announce yourself, please? Gail?
Yes, this is
Okay.
Gail Bale. Okay. First, thank you to the board for the opportunity to comment. And I'm grateful to Dylan Sandler of the Housing and Economic Policy Department of City Planning Commission for bringing this to the floor. On behalf of the massage profession, any licensed credentialed massage therapist never regards themselves as a parlor. That's outdated. It brings back old memories of really bad things, all the bad actors out there. And I will tell you that, well, I serve on the board of Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. I'm very active in the American Massage Therapy Association, the New York State Society of Medical Massage Therapy. I could read you chapter and verse on high statistics on the growth of this industry. And I could tell you from a lot of students that we lose, very gifted healers and people who want to care for people through palliative care, hospice care, all types of things. Most consumers seek this care for pain management. It's very important to them. I think it's really important to pass. And for those who have concerns about the bad actors in that field, that is what the Office of Special Enforcement is for. And I appreciate this because the way the cost is, it's prohibitive for all these great caretakers, healers to pursue a profession here. I myself am a second-generation New Yorker, and it's getting very pricey, and I've been considering leaving. I used to always attend board meetings, but I was like, the town is getting too expensive. So I appreciate you giving consideration to this. Thank you for a moment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that comment. Greatly appreciated. Thank you. Anyone else? Right. Thank you, Sari. We'll close this hearing and we'll vote on it during the business section. I am sure you are also doing the food retail expansion, fresh text amendment.
I am indeed. So let us switch gears into that. And for this one too, I'll note that I'm also joined this evening by my colleague, Jacqueline Sunwoo from the Department of City Planning's Housing and Economic Development Division, who was one of the leads on creating this zoning text. And so she's available this evening to answer questions after the presentation. So this proposal is a zoning text amendment to update the existing food retail expansion to support health program, also known as FRESH. FRESH is an existing program in the zoning resolution designed to incentivize more supermarkets in underserved areas of the city and to increase accessibility to fresh foods. FRESH 2 would expand upon the existing incentives and provide greater opportunities for fresh foods in new areas of New York City. In 2009, the FRESH program was created due to a citywide study initiated by the mayor's office in response to a supermarket shortage identified in certain neighborhoods. Over the past year, as a result of the COVID pandemic, the disparity in grocery store access has been even more apparent. Grocery stores are a fundamental component of neighborhood health, and COVID has highlighted the importance of having better access to supermarkets. The goal of the FRESH program is to encourage the development and retention of convenient, accessible stores to provide fresh fruits and vegetables, meat, and other perishable goods, in addition to a full range of grocery products. And FRESH 2 seeks to expand access to these products in more neighborhoods. The existing FRESH program has two components. a zoning incentive program, which is what we're talking about now, and that is administered by the Department of City Planning. The second is a discretionary tax incentive program administered by the New York City's Economic Development Corporation, or EDC. You can see where these programs apply today on the map on the right. Today, in Community District 1, the zoning and tax incentives apply on the Hallett's Point Peninsula, and the tax incentives alone apply in Ravenswood, Dutch Kills, Ditmars, and Eastern Astoria. Now that I've given some background on the reason for this proposal, let's step into what this actually looks like in practice. So fresh zoning incentives can be obtained through two different zoning actions. The first is a chair certification for up to 20,000 square feet of additional floor area, reduced parking, or larger store sizes in light manufacturing districts. The second is an authorization to apply for a 15-foot height increase, or about 1 story, beyond what is allowed under the existing zoning. This permits an additional floor of residential space in exchange for the fresh store on the ground floor. Since 2009, there have been 27 certified fresh projects citywide. 8 projects are occupied and open to the public. So far, one of those is in Queens on Hallett's Point. In 2018, DCP reviewed the supermarket landscape across New York City and found that many neighborhoods remain underserved by fresh food stores. To assess appropriate expansion areas, DCP performed an analysis to locate where the largest populations with limited opportunities for fresh food were. 4 key factors were assessed: walking distance from existing supermarkets, household car ownership, families with children living in poverty, and the amount of grocery store square footage for a given population in an area. The map on the right shows where the areas with the highest need based on these factors are, and those areas are in gray.
Sorry, can you repeat? Those areas are in what?
They're in gray. So you can see, and I can explain that in a little more detail. So moderate need areas are in kind of a lighter gray. High need areas are in a dark gray. But you can see on this map, the areas that have been identified with a need are highlighted or shaded in gray.
Thank you.
The proposed expansion of the FRESH program would encourage the development and retention of convenient, accessible stores that provide a full range of grocery products. They would provide more options that could result in the reduction of grocery costs, and it would also empower consumers with increased convenience and access to grocery shopping. Fresh 2 will include 4 components. It will expand the applicable geography of the zoning incentives, prevent oversaturation of supermarkets, modify ground floor design requirements, and modify parking requirements. Based on the analysis and land use policy goals, we are proposing an expansion of the boundaries of the FRESH program. 19 community districts already have FRESH within them, and 11 more will be added, including sections of Community District 1. Community District 1 currently has fresh zoning incentives mapped on the Hallett's Point Peninsula, which also houses Queens' only certified fresh food store. The zoning incentives will be expanded east to encompass all areas between 31st Street and the East River waterfront, south of 20th Avenue in Community District 1. The expansion area is highlighted in the green hatched area in the map on the left. You can also see from the map on the right that these areas have a high need for a supermarket, which is denoted in gray. The next component is to prevent oversaturation. Preventing saturation is the next change to the program, and the need for this was particularly pronounced in Central Brooklyn, but is also something that has been discussed in Community District 1 here in Queens. So in Central Brooklyn, out of nearly 35 fresh food stores since 2009, 17 were in Bedford-Stuyvesant. Oversaturation of fresh stores can potentially run existing supermarkets out of business, and the program could incentivize buildings that are bigger than what the underlying zoning permits. The proposed intervention to prevent oversaturation is to cap bonus residential floor area within a half-mile distance at 40,000 square feet. So for example, If you take the average fresh food store size of 13,000 square feet, there could be no more than 3 fresh supermarkets at that size within about a 10-minute walk from one another. DCP understands that the provision cannot completely stop or discourage a supermarket from going into a neighborhood, but it is a way for the city to control overbuilding of supermarkets and unanticipated bigger buildings than what underlying zoning typically allows. Next is a modification of ground floor design requirements. Currently, any fresh food store is required to have windows or transparent materials occupying at least 50% of the ground floor street wall. This requirement, however, has proven difficult to meet for conversions or changes of use. DCP proposes to retain the requirement for all new construction, but waive it for any conversion projects. Next, the fresh expansion will include more lower density districts or lower density residential districts, R3 to R5, which have different parking needs than commercial areas. Currently, Fresh eases parking rules by requiring 1 parking space per 1,000 square feet of commercial floor area. Under Fresh 2, the threshold would be lowered to 1 space per 400 square feet of supermarket area in lower density residential districts, but parking would be waived for up to 10,000 square feet of fresh supermarket area, or 50% of the maximum 20,000 square foot store. The parking waiver only applies to the fresh food store, not other commercial or residential uses within the building. There are a few other requirements of the program to keep in mind. The requirement for a fresh food store is pretty straightforward to follow, and more or less these requirements were created to help ensure that a fresh food store would be created instead of something like a CVS, Bodega, or other non-grocery store. These requirements include a minimum of 6,000 square feet of selling area to be contiguous and on the same floor, and a requirement for a certain amount of selling area to be perishable versus non-perishable. The requirement for distribution between perishable and non-perishable goods is going to be revised under Fresh 2 from 80%, which was difficult for operators to meet, down to 60% to be more reasonable. In addition, currently, all fresh stores are required to have a restrictive declaration, which is a legal requirement to have the supermarket in place in perpetuity. This requirement has been arduous for operators to meet, so we will not ask this of fresh projects that do not increase their residential floor area. If a food store is already permitted as of right and not bigger than what zoning permits, there is no need to require this legal agreement. In summary, Fresh 2 incentivizes neighborhood grocery stores to locate in underserved neighborhoods in the city through expanding the fresh boundary to additional neighborhoods of the city with a high supermarket need, preventing saturation of supermarkets within the fresh boundary, modifying glazing requirements for conversions, modifying parking requirements, and doing some other text cleanups. In terms of timeline, Fresh 2 was certified on May 17th, and the board will have 60 days until July 26th to review the proposal and provide recommendations. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions. And like I said before, I'm also joined by Jacqueline Sunwoo from our Housing and Economic Development Division.
Thank you, Sarit. Elizabeth, Evian, did the committee have any more questions? And even if they did not, I have a comment to make because I read the report of the Land Use Committee. And I don't believe we should remove the area between 32nd Street and Crescent on the west. I happen to live in that neighborhood of Ditmars. There is no supermarket from 21st Street until you hit 37th Street and Ditmars. So, in addition to that, I understand that the office received a petition referencing the same desire not to eliminate 31st Street, because none of us are going to count Target as a supermarket. So that's my comment. Thank you.
I want to let the community board and the public
know that we had a discussion about the text amendment on at our June 2nd meeting. At that time, the committee had raised questions about clarifying the review process that was going to happen. In that respect, the community board would review any fresh applications that required additional building height or came under an authorization, it's submitted as an authorization. Another question came up, if a supermarket closes and the building had received additional floor area, what happens? And we were informed that there is a process by which an appeal can be made to use it for another use, or to, and if the building owner doesn't do that, it ultimately is space that loses its certificate of occupancy for being used. That is the extra floor area that they gained by not having a supermarket in their building. They lose the ability to use that extra space. We wanted to know what really defines or constitutes an area of need for a fresh market, and the supermarket need index was explained as it was tonight. Parking restrictions were commented on as being one of the reasons the one fresh market we have in Hallett's Point is not utilized, because it's inaccessible for public transit, but there is no parking there for anyone who comes into the neighborhood to use it. When the issue about the boundary, reducing the boundary of the new fresh zone came up, one of the issues that was brought up was going back to the philosophy of why this was being done. And one of the, besides the fact that there were no supermarkets or few markets in the area, one of the criteria I believe had to do with the level of income in the areas that were studied. So based on that, there was a section between 32nd Street and Crescent, which was believed to be really not fitting that that criterion. So, but this is a point of discussion because the other issue was that at 30th Avenue and Broadway, there are numerous shopping facilities available in that central section of Astoria. But then when you look at the map adjacent to the proposed area, you see that large area of light gray, which has a moderate need. And so there's, you know, the statistics, or at least the mapping of the statistics that city planning is presenting indicates that a reduction should be reviewed at this point. So we had, and I have to say, we had limited time to read everything and analyze everything, because we only received the application and information just a couple days before the committee convened to make a recommendation, to discuss it and make a recommendation. In any event, what the committee has done is they voted in favor with the suggestion that the area east of Crescent Street be removed from the proposed fresh zone. So when we get to talking about it during the business section, this recommendation will be discussed. With respect to the letters and petitions that came into the office, I just saw them a half hour before the meeting. And one of them was a local, I assume a local resident of the area, who did present, I guess, approximately 40 names. But then there was also a second petition with many, many names on it that was done on an online petition gathering, signature gathering facility. Unfortunately, very many of the people who signed that petition come from places like New Jersey, upstate New York, Arizona, Florida, et cetera. So we have to look through these petitions to see how many people from the affected areas in District 1 may have been signatories to this. But I do want to acknowledge that we have these petitions who want to keep the proposed fresh zone as it appears on the screen at this moment. So that, I guess that, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Tom Ryan.
All right. 3 questions. One, I'm trying to get my head around the scale of this. You said a minimum 6 and I guess a maximum of 20. You have, let's see, from smallest to largest, you have Bodegas, 7-Elevens, Key Foods, Stop and Shop, and Costco BJ's. Of those 5 categories, what type of, let's say they're all grocery stores, are you trying to encourage?
So, yeah, I'd love for, Jackie Sunwoo to take this one.
Sure. Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm also from City Planning's Housing and Economic Development Division, and I'm the lead planner for the Citywide text amendment. I'm so sorry. Could you give me those 5 categories again?
Yeah, from smallest to largest, Bodega, a 7-Eleven, a Key Food, a Stop and Shop, and a Costco/BJ's. I'm just trying to get an idea of what square feet represent.
Right. So I want to take a step back and make a clarification first. So we're actually not limiting the supermarket to be 20,000 square feet or less. The 20,000 square feet that we're talking about is the maximum reallocated residential floor area. So for example, if a fresh store is 30,000 square feet, they can go in as a 30,000 square feet fresh food store. It's just that they can't get the entire 30,000 square feet of residential floor area. So
could you put that in physical perspective? What is a 30,000 foot store?
Right, that would be more a Stop and Shop and Key Food. It's difficult to generalize just because depending on the neighborhood, it might differ. But yes, to go back to your question, Bodegas and 7-Elevens were the categories that we actually did not want to include because the goal of this proposal is to provide a full range of grocery products and fresh foods.
Okay.
And Costco is way too big of, they would not meet the perishable and non-perishable percentage that we're requiring in a fresh food store. Because if for a fresh food store to be a fresh food store, it has to have 60% of its selling area to be like fresh foods, perishable or non-perishable goods. So Costco, like Dwayne Reed, it was our way of like limiting those kind of big box Target kind of stores to be a fresh food store.
Okay, and you didn't really go into it, but you talk about incentives and benefits and everything. I didn't really get much out of that. Who is going to get the best benefits? The developer, the property owner, the store owner who's renting that property? What is the exact benefits and who gets what? How is that determined?
Well, our goal is to benefit the neighborhood, obviously, by providing the supermarket in the neighborhood. I want to say in the process, it is a joint effort. Obviously, an applicant and a developer, they all come in for the application itself. But before it actually gets certified, we actually require that a supermarket operator be included in the process and sign on to be a fresh food store.
But who gets the benefit, though? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I mean, they're all in it, but you say there are tax benefits, incentives. Who's actually receiving that?
Right.
Yeah, I can try and answer this one. So yeah, I mean, I think Tom, I think it's a few things. I think it's a bit indirect where, you know, the results of like zoning benefits can be felt by both the, you know, property owner, developer, and operator alike. I think that really kind of comes down to what their agreement is with each other, which is not regulated by the fresh zoning incentives.
So,
And Tom, sorry, Tom, go ahead.
It's not finished. So really, it could be anyone muscling in and getting the most benefit, not maybe helping the local store owner. The developer would get something, the property owner get something, and maybe the store owner might get something. But it's not determined. There's nothing fixed there. It's a private agreement. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure if I'm understanding what you mean by a private agreement.
Well, usually when you talk about incentives and benefits and things, there's a clear delineation who gets what from doing what. You really haven't delved into, I don't see.
We don't, you're right. We don't, there's nothing within the zoning text that is controlling the agreement between the operator and the developer. That is not regulated within the zoning text. What we're regulating is the store itself and various provisions of the store itself, the physical space of the store, the what the store carries. And then we're also regulating what you see on this slide here, this restrictive declaration, where whenever the size of the store is being expanded, we're requiring that kind of that reallocated floor area only apply if the store is there in perpetuity as part of this kind of restriction that it runs with the deed.
Okay, but you're still not answering my question. I understand all that. You talk about tangible benefits. Who's going to get the tax incentives? How long will that tax incentive be? Will it be an existing tax incentive? Will it be a new tax incentive?
Right.
You're not covering that area at all.
So Tom, if I can kind of address that point, I think you bring up a really good point. So the tax incentive, which is actually more widely mapped in the CB1, is administered by NYC EDC. So I actually can't go into too much detail, but the discretionary tax incentive is actually for the supermarket operators. So if they want to build a new or renovate an existing supermarket, those benefits will actually be administered through EDC through a discretionary action, and that will be solely for the operators. Obviously, as Sarit mentioned, the zoning incentive doesn't directly, I guess, address those benefits and which benefits are going to who, but we do work in tandem with EDC closely in order to kind of, go out and let the communities know about these different incentives. And we're actually trying to work on promoting the program better to each community district. So we do appreciate your comment, and I can bring that back in our, I guess, like weekly check-ins with EDC.
You're avoiding the answer altogether. You're not telling me anything about the benefits, how that's determined, what kind of benefits, how that works. That's a big question. And so we'll skip that. My last is, could you go back to the Community Board 1 map where you had the different shades of requirement? Yeah. If you look on the lower right-hand side of the community board, you see 3 black areas, which is basically Woodside. And I'm trying to figure out what these areas are. There's one area, Woodside Houses, which is probably the lowest one. And what are the other 2 areas up there? Why are, those particular areas considered high need?
So, I think I don't know that we have like the exact details on this specific area here, but
I'm talking about the black areas.
Right.
Black areas.
Right. So, I think this goes back to kind of what we saw on some of the previous slides of just kind of how wrong direction, of what the supermarket needs index actually kind of identifies. So these areas were identified by these 4 factors: walking distance from a supermarket, household car ownership, percentage of families living in poverty, and the amount of grocery store square footage.
And how did you determine this? Did you walk around? Did you, again, I'm puzzled because I live in that area and I'm saying like, oh, that's funny. Why is this area, high need?
So we, Mr. Reed, I can try to answer this question. These key factors that we used data sets such as census and American Census survey data to determine all of these different variables, and then we combine them on like a software that we use to determine this high need. So this data itself came from, this index itself came from the data that are provided online, but we did also talk to supermarket operators and stakeholders to see which areas actually they think make sense, and where they identify as high need in the city. And that's how these things were determined.
This is what from, I'm so confused here. How this is coming about? Is this all from census data? I mean, it doesn't seem like there's more of a concept than what's the word? A meaningful thing. And that's what I'm confused about.
Right.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
Take it from there. Thank you.
Diana Limonti.
Hi. So I don't know if anybody else on the board has noticed how food and, well, pretty much everything because of COVID, but really food prices have gone up. And to me, I haven't heard anything being said about bringing in stores that are actually going to provide affordable food options for the families in CB1. You know, if you're going to bring in another supermarket where, you know, it's going to be $4 a pound for fresh fruit, I mean, that doesn't help most people. So I would like to see that addressed. Like, what kind of supermarkets are we bringing in? Are we bringing in, you know, things where supermarkets where like I think the previous, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, Tom was trying to say, you know, who's getting the incentive? I think we really need to focus on like the needs of the neighborhood, the needs of the families. We need food that is fresh, yes, that is, you know, affordable. You know, my husband and I both work, and when we go shop for food, it's really, really outstanding. It's mind-blowing, really, the prices of food. So I wouldn't be able to support something where it's just like any supermarket come in. There needs to be some provision that says, you know, we need to bring in affordable, fresh food that will really help the community, and especially the families that right now are really food insecure. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sarit.
No, I think actually I'd love for Jackie to take this one.
Okay,
Sure.
Jackie.
Diana, thank you so much for your comment. And it's something that we actually did hear from a lot of different stakeholders and community boards. Unfortunately, the city cannot regulate prices of grocery products, and the zoning incentives is actually a non-discretionary program. But the Department of City Planning has not received complaints or criticisms about a fresh food store being unaffordable or overpriced yet from since 2009. And the goal of this is that we expect that by increasing the availability and like diversity of food stores, the neighborhood residents can have more choices at better prices. And trust me, like I feel the same way. I actually live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and food here is so overpriced. Grocery shopping can be really difficult at times, but what I find easier for me is that if I have more options nearby my home, then I can actually pick and choose which ones to go to because I know which supermarket has cheaper options. And that's what the Fresh program is actually trying to do here by incentivizing more supermarkets that you can actually make those choices yourselves. I hope that kind of answers your concerns and questions.
Thank you. Mitch Waxman.
Well, as opposed to the former thing, I love this. This is great. I think this is very much needed in New York City, and I'm glad that city planning is addressing this. The one thing I would offer as an observation is that a big change in the grocery business during COVID that looks like it's going to remain around for a while is delivery to homes. And whereas this certainly wouldn't be appropriate in, say, Jamaica or Douglaston, in our neighborhood, we have a lot of congested streets and automobile traffic. And I would just ask if there's any way to create a preference for the use of cargo bikes or other human-powered vehicles to deliver food to people's homes as you move through this process, or if there's any way to write that into the code as a preference. But overall, I love this, so great.
Thank you. Kathleen Warnock?
Yes, I'd commented in the chat that in a much smaller way, we are seeing the needs for fresh food in underserved areas being met in smaller organizations like Community Supported Agriculture, which offers discounted memberships and also accepts EBT, as well as the City Green Market program, where you can get fresh food, usually at a price much lower than at a supermarket, and also accepts EBT. So if this is going to be something that encourages fresh food in underserved areas, shouldn't there be some kind of requirement for the owners or managers to do that sort of thing? Because as Diana said, the price of food has skyrocketed in the last year, and people are buying food that is not healthy or nutritious in dollar stores because that's all they can afford. We're also more of a food desert now since the closing of the Key Foods on 30th Avenue, and that's not going to be replaced in terms of healthy, nutritious offerings when there's some corner of the Target bought there that's going to be for groceries. So is there more of a commitment with this whole project to see that people in underserved neighborhoods can afford the healthy, nutritious food that makes the whole city a better place?
Thank you, Kathleen. I think this was Jackie. I think competition will lower prices, I think is the answer.
If you don't mind me kind of adding to that, because I heard you saying that Key Foods is actually gone in your neighborhood. So one of the other things that Fresh is trying to incentivize to do is retention of supermarkets. So let's say the Key Foods, let's say that was let's say they're trying to build a fresh supermarket there, then there's more incentive for a supermarket to go in because they can get these reallocated residential floor area. And one of the reasons we actually expanded into some parts of CB1 was because we actually heard that there are a lot of just single story supermarkets. And what we anticipate is that in the future, when it actually gets redeveloped into a mixed use building with residential units, then we can actually incentivize a supermarket to actually be there, go back in as it gets redeveloped. So that's another component that we're trying to build into the program.
Thank you. Richard Guzami. Richard?
Yes, a couple things. I would like to see, as I'm finding with the Fresher Market on Hallett's Point, that we had said earlier that there's big issues with parking. Is it possible that the parking requirements could be tied to the availability of public transit and the kind of public transit where people can actually carry bags, not single person, but they can actually carry stuff? I mean, look at that. I think that's a much more important factor when you decide how much parking is needed. See how much public transportation is there. And the second question, this ties into what Tom Ryan was saying. If you're seeing a need around Woodside houses, like it looks like you are, how come there is not fresh designated territory there in that part of our district?
And thank you so much for your comment and question, Richard. To answer your question about parking, I personally was not aware of this parking issue in Hallett's Point, so thank you for bringing that up. I'll definitely take this back to the team and see because I wasn't around when this project was actually approved, so I can go back to the team and discuss it. But so far we actually had not heard of issues with parking. So this was something that we are modifying the parking regulations, but this is something that we hadn't heard before. So we will take this, I will take this back to the team as well. And to answer your second question about the Woodside houses area, we considered not only the supermarket needs index SNI, but also the development potential and the neighborhood characteristics. And a lot of the supermarket operators did not feel that there was a high need or development potential in this area. So that was one other reason. And we also saw that there were a few supermarkets that are existing in the neighborhood that is serving the neighborhood. But we would love to get this recommendation because we are actually considering, we want to take every recommendation of expansion boundaries into consideration when moving this proposal forward. So yeah, we would appreciate your feedback on that.
Thank you. Jeff Martin.
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick, just to kind of build off of what Richard was saying and what we talked a lot about at our committee meeting. The issue that I have with the expansion area specifically is if we're looking and the spirit, and I think Liz started out talking about kind of the spirit of what the program is supposed to be. And if the program is to provide greater incentives for grocery stores to locate in underserved neighborhoods, the issue that I have with it is that the proposed expansion is kind of a blanket expansion in CB1, specifically in areas that don't have the need or have low need for additional grocery stores, and then don't cover other areas in our district that do have medium or high need. So, I think specifically, to me, specifically looking at this slide of the presentation is I think this needs to be looked at, and the supermarket need index and the area of expansion needs to be more closely tied together, as opposed to just a blanket area of the western half of our district. And I just wanted to ask as this is studied, that would be my comment. Specifically, we look at like 30th Avenue and 31st Street. We have the Brothers Market there. We have the Key Food. We have Teton, which is right there. So, that area isn't specifically an area of need, but it's here in the expansion. And other areas like Marie, I think where you live, this it is included there, but like the Woodside houses, some areas there aren't included. So I just think I push the team to kind of look more closely and tie these need index closer to the expansion, proposed expansion area.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Diana Lee Mungie, you have your hands up, Diana?
Yes. So after hearing the additional comments, so there's something, I guess, there are two things that feel like are being said that are at odds, right? On the one hand, you're saying that you want to expand this because there are places that need, right? That there's a need for these type of supermarkets because it's lacking. But on the other hand, you also just said that, for example, that the near Woodside houses, that development, I don't remember the exact wording that Ms. Sun used, but something about development opportunities weren't there. So that's why that area is not included, right? So which one is it? Is it you want to do it in area of needs, or you just want to expand this area so that when developers come in, they have this opportunity to, build this supermarket for, in their building?
Mm-hmm. So I do want to stress that we really do want to put this program into the areas of need. And sorry if I misspoke earlier. What I meant is we actually never spoke with any developers, so I wouldn't know what their take on this is. what I meant was supermarket operators said that there wouldn't be enough, I guess, urgency from their end to go into these areas. And that's why this area wasn't mapped. But city planning, our team actually thought that it was a very valid point and a very good recommendation. So we are taking the recommendations in and considering the expansion areas again. So please do, we strongly really encourage you guys to put in that recommendation. And we've been in close conversation with Sarit on this issue as well. So yeah, please.
Thank you.
Send in your recommendations. Thank you.
Jan Aliberti. Jan?
Yes, I had to unmute myself. If the goal is to get more fresh fruits and vegetables and things like that, fresh foods, into the hands and mouths of people, did you look into the idea of incentivizing, give an incentive to bodegas and other small stores that are already in underserved communities that currently don't sell fresh foods, so that they're already in place. They have customers that go to these stores already, and instead of selling them, serving them so much of the unhealthy food, maybe they could be incentivized to increase or institute selling fresh fruits and vegetables.
Thank you. I think it was Dan. Thank you for your comment. What I do want to say is that unfortunately that's not I guess a component that city planning through a zoning and land use lens can actually regulate. But I do want to note that Fresh is actually part of a larger citywide food initiative that the mayor is trying to put forth. And there are a lot of different departments that are working on different components of food accessibility and food equity. And I actually think that there is a program where they're trying to encourage bodegas and smaller supermarkets to sell healthier foods. I can send Sarit this larger citywide food policy report. I think it's called like a food policy 10-year plan for New York City. And they actually have a lot of different initiatives that are trying to better the food access and freshness of foods, no pun intended there. So I'll send that to Sarit and maybe she can disseminate that to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I know for a long time there was something called the Healthy Bodegas Initiative, but I think that has morphed into other different initiatives. I don't know like the latest name of what it's being called, but really those were very focused on kind of, connecting bodega operators to funding for refrigeration so that they could carry perishable foods.
A follow-up to the question is, earlier it was mentioned that there's a supermarket, some kind of a survey or index of need. Was there any survey of the people in these neighborhoods that you want to put these zoning into? Talking with the people in the neighborhoods and saying, if we put if a place was built in your neighborhood to sell fresh vegetables and fruits and things, would you go to it? Would you shop there? Because if I were opening a store in the area, I would want to know if I'm going to have enough customers to stay in business.
So we actually have not done any surveys in the process of creating the index itself. The purpose of the Supermarkets Needs Index was something that we wanted to use, how do I say this, like quantitative data in order to kind of assess and guide our proposal. But I think that is a really good comment. And this is still a proposal, and this is a process where we want to get your feedback as well. So I do appreciate you guys are sending in the recommendation, and I do want to note that we are considering.
Well, do you have any people that have said that if this zoning goes through, that they are interested in opening one of these stores?
Right. So Unfortunately, we did not do like neighborhood surveys, but we have talked to supermarket operators and a lot of like small business supermarket operators. And that's why they identified that area as, I guess, high need for them and their desire to go into those neighborhoods. They thought there was a stronger market in that area.
Thank you, Jackie. Any more Hannah Lupian, last question, Hannah?
Hi, as many of you know, I work in food insecurity and have for my whole career. And I just want to say, whether or not you support this proposal, this is exactly the kind of thing that anti-hunger and good food advocates have been advocating for years. So I hope that you see it in that light, that this is something that the advocates and underserved communities have been advocating for and asking city, state, and federal legislators to make real. So, you know, I don't think that this is a ploy from developers. I think it is proposed with the best intentions at heart. Thanks.
Thank you for that comment, Hannah. Thank you. I'll take this moment to close this hearing. It'll be voted on during the business section. Thank you so much, Sarit and Jackie. Thank you.
Thank you to all of you.
Thank you so much.
Can I get a motion to approve the May 2021 minutes?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Talk briefly about the chair's report. Just to say that we're going to spend the summer working on reformulating board meetings. I think we might be, I'm not sure, doing a combination of in-person and live streaming, still to be determined. We'll also be working on protocol and procedure for board meetings, maybe a little more formal. Some of you have reached out to me regarding board appointments. Please know that I do not appoint anybody to the board. That is up to the borough president and/or the sitting council member. No board member appoints another board member, not even the chair. So if you have comments on appointments, direct them to the borough president. Thank you so much. With that, I will say have a happy summer and we'll reach out. Capital expense, we also discussed that we might just leave the list as it is due to COVID. We don't anticipate any changes, though we will have a hearing, a public hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, Florence, in September. So with that, I'll just say enjoy your summer and feel free to reach out anytime with any comments. I'm open to that. Thank you. Florence?
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My battery is actually dying on this laptop that I'm communicating with, so I'm going to keep it very brief. During the summer, the board office handles all the clerical updates and needs of the community board and the community at large. As you all know, we handle constituent complaints on a daily basis, so we will be continuing our work throughout the summer. I want to wish you all a healthy, happy summer. Stay safe and just follow protocols as they come forward. We look forward to seeing you all in September.
Happy summer.
Committee reports, airport, Rosemary Poveromo.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. I've got an update on LaGuardia Airport's redevelopment. More than 50% of the whole new LaGuardia is now open. Coming up on the 1-year anniversary for opening the new Terminal B arrivals and departures hall. Airport roadways are almost 90% complete. Structural steel has been topped out for the new Terminal C arrivals and departures hall and the new Central Hall. More than $1.5 billion in contracts was awarded to minority or women business enterprises. More than $600 million in contracts awarded to local Queens-based businesses. And there were 5 4-year full tuition scholarships awarded to local students from East Elmhurst, Corona, and Astoria. So goes my report, Madam Chairperson. Everyone have a wonderful, safe summer. See you in September, God willing. Thank you.
Consumer Affairs. And is Andy making the presentation tonight, Florence?
I believe I
Here
am.
you are. Hi, Andy.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you. On Friday, Florence was kind enough to send around the spreadsheet of the liquor license and cafe applications over the last month. Hopefully you had a chance to review them. We in the committee did review them and have entered into stipulations with some of the new businesses that are applying. Most of the businesses, as previously mentioned, we already have stipulations with. We also reviewed the statistics with the 114th precinct to make sure there were no egregious violations. And with all those considerations, we would ask that the board approve those stipulations that we entered into, and we can move forward with the meeting, unless there's any questions.
There's a motion on the floor to approve. Can I get a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, I seem to be having some technical.
I heard a second. I don't know who it was from.
Jean Marie.
Jean Marie.
Thank you, Jean Marie. As long as we do not have any opposition, I think it passes unanimously.
Any opposition? So moved. Thank you, Andy.
Have a wonderful summer, everyone.
You too. Environmental Sanitation, Antonella Di Severio.
Oh, well, I was going to let Dominic.
Okay, Dominic may.
Do you want to do it today?
Sure, I don't mind. Hi, everybody. Thanks,
Hi,
Antonella. Please add in as you see fit. So everyone have a nice summer. As we're saying, we did have a meeting on June 8th last week where the guest was the liaison from the Sanitation Department, Joseph Ottamanelli. And it was quite informative. A few notes. He was talking about a new 3-part initiative for neighborhood. He didn't say it was really live in our neighborhood yet, but he's going to bring more news. Number 1, increase in litter basket collection scheduling from 3 pickups a week to 6. I don't know if we get 3 pickups anywhere around here, but I'm optimistic. Number 2 is about a new service called community cleanup vans, where the sanitation will actually deploy and make available vans for community groups that are interested in cleaning up public space. And 3, something they call Precision Cleaning Initiative, which is intended to have a dedicated team to address specific sites. He used the word eyesores, large piles of trash. So we hope to work continually with him through the fall and even through the summer, just to talk about in action cleaning up our pretty blighted community. Thank you. And
They're
anything else,
also-
Antonella?
Yeah, they're going to bring back the safe events, electronics pickup, and they're going to announce dates in July. I'm really excited about that one, but happy summer to everyone.
Thank you. Health and Human Services, Judy Trilivers.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see everyone. So on May 24th, we had 2 speakers from the Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island Area Health Education Center speak to the committee regarding the opioid epidemic. It was very interesting. She gave a lot of statistics, and not surprisingly, one of the statistics that she talked about was the major increase in the opioid overdoses since the pandemic. And an interesting fact that came out of it, I haven't tested it yet, but she did mention that all pharmacies, especially the chain pharmacies, are supposed to be able to give out Narcan kits to anyone who asks if you walk in for free and ask for a Narcan kit. And I think it's probably more the chain pharmacies, but I haven't tested it, but I think it's an interesting fact that none of us knew. The discussion also went into marijuana legalization. So one of the presenters was Dr. Minerva Francis, and she had agreed to come back and speak to us later on because she's been very instrumental in the legislation regarding that. And that's it. So everyone enjoy your summer.
Thank you. Land use and zoning. Elizabeth Arion or?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone. I suppose what we can do is the vote for first public hearing item, which was the Wildflower Studios. The actions were waterfront special permit to
No, the voting now.
Jean Marie, can you mute yourself?
Please mute yourself.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
To modify the height, a special permit to modify the height and setback, a waterfront authorization to that deals with the size and the configuration and design of the waterfront area, and a CPC chairperson certification that all is being done according to the modifications as approved. So as I had spoken about before, we had several meetings with the applicants and worked, had an incredible response by the team, by the development team, to the issues that we had raised. And I believe based on that and the benefits that this project can bring to the community, the committee came to a consensus and voted 8 in favor, 1 opposed, to approve, recommending approval of the application. We did want to, as I mentioned before, request to the studios that they assist us in coordinating the efforts for the waterfront cleanup, the waterway cleanup, and for getting 19th Avenue into a more beautification for 19th Avenue. And as you heard tonight, they are willing to donate time, hours, and services for helping us do that also. So we have our work ahead of us, our coordination work among our committees and also among the other community organizations who have an interest in revitalizing this area. So with that, I would ask for a motion on this application, on these applications.
Motion to.
Motion. Second, Tom Ryan.
I'm sorry.
Second.
Who did the motion to approve? Was
Jerry.
that Jerry? Okay.
Jerry and Tom.
And Tom, okay.
Okay, Amy, can you do the roll call, please?
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. Helene Abiola.
She's absent, Amy.
I'm sorry. Okay, Rosanna Alfrejanis.
She's absent as well.
George Alexio.
Yes.
Thank you. Daniel Alberti.
Yes.
Andy Agila.
Yes, thank you.
Ed Baber with us tonight.
He's absent.
Louise Bordley.
Here.
Is that a yes vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Shoma Brahmahandam. Sorry. Shoma?
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm here. That's a yes vote.
Thank you. And Bruno?
She's not here.
Jerry Caliendo.
Yes.
Iraq Shahansky.
Sadly, for zoning issues on Euler, so I cannot vote.
Got it. Thank you. Jean Marie DeLeva.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And Antonelli DiSeverio.
Yes.
Katie's not here tonight. Liz Arion.
Yes.
Mackenzie Farquhar. Yes. Dean Veritovic.
Yes.
Shahanas Hamdi?
Yes.
Thank you. Evie Hansopoulos? with us
Evie's not
tonight?
here.
Okay. Amy Hauser, yes.
Hi,
Helen Ho-
actually, Helene Abiola is here. I'm
Oh.
having, I was on my phone, my work phone before, but I'm on the computer now.
Hi, do you want to give us a vote?
Yeah, I did in the chat. I just put yes.
Oh, okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you.
Okay, Helen Ho,
Not here.
Vanessa Jones Hall,
Not here.
Richard Kuzami,
Yes.
thank you. Nancy Conopal? Nancy? Armor Cult?
He's not here today.
He's not. Jerry Krill? Is Jerry with us?
He was.
I'm going to skip ahead to Christina Lastras.
Yes.
Thank you. Diana Limongi?
Yes.
Thank you. Chelsea Lopez?
Yes.
Thank you. Hannah Lupian? Hannah?
Yes.
Thank you. Jeff Martin?
Yes.
Thank you. Amin Mahedi?
Yes.
Thank you. Tony Maloney?
Yes.
Doreen Mohammed? Doreen? I saw her name earlier.
Yeah.
I'll move on. Eric, is Eric Mouche with us tonight?
No, he's not. Amy.
Stella Nicolau?
Yes.
Thank you. Mary O'Hara?
Not here.
Dino Panagoulias?
I don't believe.
Nope.
Dino? Doesn't
Dino,
know?
you
Nope. Yep.
You vote. Are
I'm
you
here.
voting no?
I am voting no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Juliet Payapa?
Yes.
Thank you. Rosemary Poforomo?
Rosemary.
Give her a second. Does she skip town?
Might have gotten off, yeah.
I'm going to go ahead with Yane Robinson.
Rosemary may
She's-
be having a hard time to unmute.
Okay.
Okay, I vote yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I got you, Rosemary.
How I hate this thing.
Yeah, I think it's a star. It's star 6.
Yeah, I did it. I voted yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Gotcha.
your patience.
Yane Robinson,
She's not here.
Brian Romero.
Yes.
Thank you. Thomas Ryan,
Yes.
Dominic Stiller.
Yes.
Thank you. Andre Stiff,
Yes.
Marie Torniali,
Yes.
Rod Townsend.
Yes.
Thank you. Judy Trillivus,
Yes.
Kathleen Warnock,
Yes.
Mitch Waxman,
Yes.
Rosemary Yelton.
Yes.
Thank you.
Amy, I missed 2 votes. Nancy Conopal and Amir Kobot.
Both are not here with us. At least I thought I saw Nancy's name earlier, though.
I
Yes.
did too.
Nancy was here earlier, but she's not here for the vote. And Amir was not at the meeting
No.
tonight.
Thank you
So
very much.
I have a total of 35 yeses, 1 no, and 1 abstention.
Marie, I have a question. This is Rosemary. Since I was on mute, did my report on airport get into anybody's ears?
We
yes.
heard you
Yeah.
loud and clear.
We
Rosemary.
heard, yep.
Well, that is a novelty in my life. Thank you so much.
You're
Loud and clear,
you're quite
Rosemary.
welcome. Thank you, Rosemary.
Oh
Okay.
my God, I'm so pleased. Thank you.
That was a good report.
Okay.
And I don't take airplanes.
Okay, did we finish that vote? Amy, can you repeat?
Yes, I have 35 yes,
Thank
1
you.
no, and 1 abstain.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you so much. Elizabeth?
Oh, I'm on again. Okay.
You're on again. Sorry.
But we want a tap dance routine with that.
Next time, next week. How's that?
Okay.
Okay, this is a vote for the Health and Fitness Citywide Text Amendment. We, I think I mentioned before, recommendation to approve the text amendment with a recommendation to the commission to redefine, oh yes, there, redefine the gymnasium. There was a bit of confusion with the use group issues between gymnasiums, which are large basketball facilities, et cetera, and gyms where you go to do your workouts. And so I think it was clarified during the course of the presentation. The issue was brought up by Jerry, who works with these definitions on a constant basis. So Jerry, do you want to amplify that, or are you satisfied with the
No, I'm not satisfied. Actually, the zoning resolution, the use group 9 specifically states what what a gymnasium is. And I could read it to you. A gymnasium used exclusively for basketball, handball, paddleball, racquetball, squash, and tennis. So I think to avoid confusion, because a gymnasium today is not just a basketball gymnasium. It's all kinds of fitness facilities, including yoga and all the other fitness facilities that we have out there in the world. So for the purpose of making this whole thing is to make it easy for these businesses to open. Why create confusion in the zoning resolution? They should take it one step further and clarify it clearly and include a gym as a fitness center as opposed to a basketball court.
Well, they are asking for a physical cultural establishment, so.
Okay.
Is that resolved?
What did you say, Tom?
The text is asking for physical cultural establishments, not specifying a gym per se.
Right, but unfortunately, physical cultural establishment is defined in the definitions, but it's not associated in the zoning resolution as use group 9. There's nowhere in the zoning resolution that says that a physical cultural establishment is use group 9, and that should be clarified.
Okay, so is there a suggestion with regard to that? We need a motion on the floor to discuss this.
I think our motion, the committee's motion, had that incorporated, that city planning clarify a gymnasium as defined in the zoning resolution to include other gyms other than basketball, racquetball, and squash, or whatever it is.
Okay. Can someone make that motion, please?
I will make that motion.
I will second it.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Which is to recommend approval with the recommendation that the commission redefine and clarify and redefine gymnasium in the zoning resolution to include gyms. Include other gyms.
Correct.
Thank you. Amy?
Hi again, sorry. Helene Abiola. Helene?
Yes.
Thank you. Rosanna Alfajanis,
Not here.
George Alexiou,
Yes.
Daniel Alberti,
No.
Andy Agila,
Yes.
Ed Baber's not here, Louise Bordley,
Yes.
Shoma from, I'm not going to try to pronounce the name again, I'm sorry. Shoma,
Yes.
thank you. And Bruno,
Not here.
Jerry Caliendo.
Yes.
Iraq Shahansky.
Hello, this is for Euler, right?
This is CPC text amendment.
Then, yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
You can- Thank you. Jean Marie DeLeva,
No.
Antonella De Severio,
Yes.
Katie's not here. Liz Arion,
Yes.
Mackenzie Fakwa,
Yes.
Dean Baratovic,
Yes.
Shahana Sapni,
Yes.
if he's not here. Amy Hauser, yes. Helen Ho, not here.
I'm here.
Vanessa Jones Hall, not here. Richard Kusami,
Yes.
Jerry Krill,
Must have gotten off. Go ahead.
Christina Lastras,
No.
Diana Limongi,
Yes.
Chelsea Lopez,
No.
Hannah Lupian,
Yes.
Jeff Martin,
Yes.
Amin Mahedi,
Yes.
Tony Maloney. Hi, Tony.
Tony Maloney.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you.
Yes.
Doreen Mohammed. No, Doreen. Eric Michel's outright. Stella Nicolau,
Yes.
Mary O'Hara, Dino Panagoulias,
Yes.
thank you. Juliet Payaba,
Yes.
Rosemary Poveromo. Is Rosemary still on?
Rosemary.
Star six. Yane Robinson, not here.
Not here.
Brian Romero,
I just want to just voice.
I voted no, and my fingers apparently have a mind of their own with this phone.
oh dear.
Okay,
Okay.
so you're voting no. Thank you.
Got it. Brian, sorry, you were saying?
Just want to voice that I'm concerned about any kind of move that moves decision making away from the community board. 1 and 2, I heard a lot of stigmatizing language related to sex workers. I resent that language wholeheartedly. And I think we need to be more careful about who we're talking about when we kind of put that language out there. And I will vote yes. Thank you.
I'm sorry, it
I'm
was a
sorry,
lot of
Brian-
background
Brian-
noise.
Brian,
Background noise.
excuse me, Brian, can you get back on? Nobody heard what you had to say.
I was saying that I'm very concerned about any kind of move that moves decision making away from the community board. 1, 2, I heard stigmatizing language related to sex workers and people in the sex trade. I resent that kind of language because those are the kind of communities that I got on this community board to represent in the first place. So I think we need to be careful about the ways in which we talk about people and their employment and how we perpetuate that kind of stigma. On that note, I will vote yes on this.
Vote
Thank
yes.
you.
Thank you. Thomas Ryan,
I vote yes.
Dominic Stiller,
Even though I think there's a total disconnect between the residential zoning applying to this use and not many other similar, I applaud the suggestion to remove it from additional requirements, so I vote yes.
Thank you.
Andre Stitt,
Thank you.
I vote yes.
Marie Tarniali,
Yes.
Rod Townsend.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, Judy Trilivis,
Yes.
Kathleen Warnock,
Yes.
Mitch Waxman,
No.
Rosemary Yelton.
Yes.
Thank you. Madam Chair, altogether, there's 31 yeses, 6 nos
Okay.
on the health and wellness text amendment.
Thank you. The motion carries 31 to 6. Thank you.
Okay.
You're up again.
And the last one of the evening for your vote is the Fresh 2, the food retail expansion to support health text amendment. Let's see, I think we reviewed this before, so I am just remind you that the committee voted, it was split 4-3 on a motion to recommend approval of the fresh text amendment. But they wanted to recommend to the commission to reevaluate the expansion area. We had this whole discussion during the presentation or after the presentation, so you understand the issues that we were talking about. And the recommendation that was going to the commission was to remove an area east of 20, was it 21st, 30, between 21st and 32nd Street, based on the fact that we...
Crescent Street, I'm sorry, wasn't it?
Crescent Street, I'm sorry, you're right. Thank you, Richard. Based on what we thought were part of the criteria that were used to evaluate these area of needs. So I'm going to open the floor to a motion on this amendment.
I'd like to make a motion.
Motion. Second by Tom Ryan.
Jerry
What is the motion,
Caliendo.
please?
Really? I'm sorry. Who made the motion?
Jerry.
Jerry, and what is the motion?
The motion is to approve the application, the text amendment as is.
Okay.
And seconded by Ahmedi?
I mean, yes.
I mean,
I think it's seconded by Ryan. I made a motion, but I was Jerry.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Let's open for discussion. Any comment on the motion?
This one. Okay. It's Richard. It's very hard because we don't really know exactly what their defining factor is, what city planning wants to do. If it's based just upon trying to help low-income people out, then in fact, this recommendation makes sense. But if it's more just to, in general, increase the amount of supermarkets within what we consider not just low income, but also moderate income, then as is good. So, unless we really get it defined by city planning, I don't really know personally which way to go. I'm just not sure.
I second what Richard says.
I'm sorry, one second. Richard.
Yes.
You don't know which way to go on what?
Oh, whether to approve it with or without the recommendation that the community board, in fact, the committee came up with. It's hard to say,
Okay, well, it's something that you'll have to think about because the motion on the floor for a vote is to approve it as is.
Tom Ryan.
I want to make a comment. I hate when we have presentations and the people can't answer the specific questions that they're requesting our approval of. So I'm voting no.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else? Jeffrey?
I think, a lot of the discussion that we've had, kind of revolves around, and I'll just kind of go back to the comments I made earlier, but they revolve around, what exactly is this expansion? What area of our community board will be included in this expansion? To approve as is to approve as the map that they had showed, which includes any area from the East River to 32nd Street for the most part. And it leaves some areas out, and it includes areas that are listed in their study as areas that don't necessarily need this program to promote grocery stores. So, I can't approve as is because of that, but I, think that if city planning were to reconsider the specific areas that they're targeting, to providing a more targeted approach, that's something that, I could get behind.
May I make one more comment, Marie?
Yes, Richard.
Thank you. I just think that, what the committee came up with was a recommendation. It was not a stipulation. So I really think maybe we could reword that or something like that to really define what their real goals are here. Because they really haven't at this point. Not only are they putting in areas that may not really show that it needs it, they're actually leaving other areas out, like around Woodside houses, that we know definitely need it. So it's just very problematic.
Diana Limongi, I'm sorry.
Yeah, to me, to echo what has already been said, to me, this just doesn't seem like it's addressing a real need of the community. It needs to be more targeted, and I'm gonna vote no, as is.
Rod Townsend?
What I'm seeing tonight is a lot of addressing neglecting the perfect, neglecting the good for the perfect. This is not a perfect amendment, but it took 8 years for this administration to do it. This administration is leaving office in about 6 months. You will not have this opportunity again. That's the reality. I'll be voting yes.
Thank you, Rod. Dominic Stiller.
Dominic.
Dominic, you're muted, Dominic. You are muted.
Sorry. Thank you. I'm unmuted now. I think to Jeff's point and Diana's point, this is kind of a dynamic metric. It's going to move when places improve. Their metrics of proximity to fresh food and their metrics of income are going to change. So if the theory of this is sound, and I think the intent of it is sound, I'm going to vote yes, because everybody knows that all these areas are greatly underserved. There's just not commercial incentive to open supermarkets for good food in these underserved areas.
Thank you.
But I think, Dominic, to your point there, may I, Marie? Just
yes, go ahead.
Kind of address that. So I think to your point there, Dominic, a lot of these areas are changing. Specifically the area where we have our one fresh market here. I've been to that store. They can't hold their produce on the shelves long enough for it to for people to come in and buy it. There may be some other issues with parking. Maybe exactly where it's placed. But again, these areas are changing. There's going to be a need for new grocery stores in these certain areas. So, I think the committee a couple of weeks ago saw a presentation. Broadway and 11th is a new development that's coming in to nearby that neighborhood with a grocery store as part of the development. That's not taking advantage of the fresh program. So I think as these areas do develop, there will be the incentive to build grocery stores without the program. Now, I'm not saying that the program isn't needed. I think the spirit of the program is in the correct place, serving the underserved neighborhoods. But at the same time, we gotta map where those are at, and we have to target those neighborhoods and not blanket the entire community board or half of our community board, with the program in areas that aren't necessarily in need.
Marie, can I say one thing?
Yes, after you learn to use the raise hand function. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. It's done. There we go. Okay, Marie. I'd like to go back to what I said before. Again, our original committee, it was a recommendation. It was not a stipulation, which means that we can put a recommendation for people, for just asking them to readdress the areas that really show economic need, where it makes sense. I mean, even the area on Woodside where they stated that they didn't do it because it didn't look like there was development coming up. we recently approved a large development up there. So, to say that just is, I think, really not a correct assumption. They're making incorrect assumptions here. So we want to come out in favor of it. Yes, yes, yes. And we recommend that you relook at, and we can actually, if you want, stay away from the 31st Street, Crescent Street define it, and just ask them to recommend that they relook at the borders of this.
Thank you. Iraq?
Yeah, very quickly. I just find it very odd that we kind of are not taking into consideration that it's confirmed that this is what advocates who've been working with the communities directly for a very long time want. We're trying to make assumptions that this is not what the communities need. I'm going to be voting yes, and I invite everyone to do it since the advocates have been fighting for this for a very long time.
Thank you, Iraq. Anyone else?
Marie, I just want to remind the board members that there were those letters and
yes, we do have, well, now I'm just talking about the Ditmars area. I believe it was.
Yes, 31st and 20th, right.
We have 200 signatures for keeping 31st Street in the proposed fresh zoning, and I'll tell you why. As I said before, because I live in that neighborhood. You can go from 21st Street, you have to walk to 37th Street to find a supermarket, ever since Key Food closed. So unless you think the people of that neighborhood should go to Target to go food shopping, because that's what's going in there, I would like to see that program, which is, and it's underserved, and there's more than one definition of underserved, because that community has a large population of senior citizens who are unable to walk the distance required to go to a simple supermarket, and it's disgraceful. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. The city of New York came in too late, as usual, with a proposal. They closed Key Food, and certainly the city of New York should have gotten involved trying to keep that place open.
I agree. Thank you. Elizabeth?
No, I have nothing further. So the motion on the floor.
Question?
Call the question.
Okay. So the motion on the floor to vote on is to approve the application as it has been submitted to us, as it is.
Second?
Second.
Thank you.
Yes.
Amy?
Helena Abiola.
Yes.
Rosanna Alvajanis.
Not here.
George Alexiou. Daniel Alberti.
No.
Andy Agila.
Yes.
Louise Bordley.
Yes.
Shoma. Shoma, are you still with us?
Sorry, yes.
Yes, vote. Is Ann Bruno with us?
No.
Jerry Caliendo.
Yes.
Iraq Shahansky.
Iraq? Yes, thank you.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jean Marie DeLeva.
Yes.
Antonella Disaverio.
Say no only because I think there should be a more targeted, mindful, thoughtful approach to it, but a no for now. Thanks.
Liz Arion.
Yes.
Mackenzie Farquhar.
Yes.
Dean Veratovic.
Yes.
Shahanas. Hamdi?
Yes.
Evie's not. Amy Howe is a yes. Helen's not here. Vanessa's not here. Richard Kusami.
No, only because it's not defined correctly. I think they should relook at the area.
Okay. Next.
Is Jerry Krill with us?
I don't think so. I think
Christina Lastras.
No.
Diana Lamongi.
No.
Chelsea Lopez,
No.
Hannah Lupian,
Yes.
Jeff Martin,
No.
Amin Mahedi. Amin,
Yes.
thank you. Tony Maloney. Tony's gone. Doreen Mohammed. Stella
Doreen?
Nick. No, Doreen. No, Eric. Stella Nicolau.
Yes.
No, Mary. Dino Panagulias.
No.
Juliet Payaga.
Yes.
Rosemary Poveromo.
No.
Yone Robinson.
Hi, please.
Brian Romero. Brian.
No.
Thomas
Brian?
Ryan. Thomas Ryan.
No.
That was not clear. That was not clear that it was Brian, please.
She's not responding.
Marie?
No, I don't believe it was Brian.
I don't believe it was Brian either, Marie.
It wasn't.
I didn't record Brian.
I'm
No.
going to look for his name, Marie. I'll check. I
No,
don't-
she did not record Brian. I think it was Brian, then Tom Ryan is the confusion. So Tom, go ahead and vote.
Thank you.
And Tom voted no.
Okay, thank you.
Dominic Stiller.
Yes.
Andre Stiff. Andre?
Not here.
This is iPhone. Andre, iPhone.
Is that answering?
Andre, I'll come back to you. Marie Tornielli.
Yes.
Rod Townsend.
Yes.
Judy Trillivas.
Yes.
Kathleen Warnock.
Yes, because of what Rod said.
Mitch Waxman.
Enthusiastically, yes.
Rosemary Yelton.
Yes.
Andre, I see you're in the participants. Are you able to give us a?
Yes.
Oh, yay. Thank you. Thank you. Marie, we have 24 yeses and 10 nos.
Motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Elected officials or their representatives, does anybody want to speak? Can you raise your hand? Use the raise hand function if you do, please. No.
Madam Chair, Deborah Tharrington has her hand up. The hand's
Okay,
just all went
Deborah.
up.
Go ahead, Deborah.
Wait, please.
Hey, Deborah.
Hi, good evening. Good evening. Deborah Tharrington from Councilmember Jimmy Van Bramer's office. Okay, this month the City Council passed Councilmember Van Bramer's Intro 1681, requiring the Department of Education and each school to create food waste prevention plans. There is an untold amount of food waste that gets discarded from our schools without real tracing, and much of this waste is preventable. Through these real food waste prevention plans, the DOE will divert much of their waste from the landfill to food kitchens, compost, and pinpoint strategies to reduce waste in general. Also, the City Council will be voting on the fiscal year 21 budget later this month. And as always, the council member will be fighting for a more just and equitable budget, which must include culture and libraries as priorities. On Monday, June 7th, the Queens Public Library moved 11 more branches to stage 2, allowing for in-person services and computer access. Also, the Queens Public Library anticipates reopening all available QPL locations for at least limited service by mid-July. Lastly, this morning, Councilmember Van Bramer was honored to co-name the intersection of 50th Avenue and Vernon Boulevard right in front of the 108th precinct. It was in honor of Luis Alvarez, who was a Astoria resident. He grew up in Astoria and went to Monsignor McClancy High School. Luis Alvarez devoted his life to New York City, serving with the New York Police Department for 20 years and advocating for fellow 9/11 first responders up till his final days. After September 11th, Alvarez was at ground zero for 3 months with fellow first responders searching for survivors in the toxic rubble. In 2016, he was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. Alvarez is one of the 50 members of the NYPD who died of cancer linked to toxins from 9/11 and the aftermath. 2019, while being treated for cancer, Alvarez famously testified in front of House Judiciary Committee Subcommittee 2 years ago with comedian Jon Stewart. They never forget the heroes James Zadroga, Ray Pfeiffer, and Luis Alvarez. Permanent authorization of the September 11th Victim Compensation Fund Act, that's a mouthful, was passed a few days after his death. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful summer.
Thank you. Ernie Brooks?
Okay. Yes, thanks, Marie. Thanks, Florence. I'm glad to be here to just give a quick update for Congresswoman Maloney. In March, as we know, Biden signed into law the American Rescue Plan to respond to the health and economic crisis brought by the coronavirus. President Biden has also announced his American Families Plan and American Jobs Plan. Both are important to ensure that we're building back better from the coronavirus and taking a whole of government look at what we can do to help families and bring our nation's and cities' infrastructure into the 21st century. The American Families Plan recognizes in order to build back better, we need to help working families. Included in this plan are creating a long overdue national comprehensive paid family and medical leave program, providing 4 years of free education for all students by ensuring universal quality preschool for all 3 and 4-year-olds, and providing Americans 2 years of free community college, and extending the expanded health insurance tax credits in the American Rescue Plan and extend the child tax credit, which helps lift millions of children out of poverty. The Congressman is very excited about the American Jobs Plan. This is the big, bold, green infrastructure plan we have been waiting for. New York's infrastructure received a C- grade on its infrastructure report card. This plan is going to improve this score to an A. The Americans Jobs Plan would invest, this is countrywide, but a lot of it's going to come to here, to New York and to New York City, invest $115 billion in repairing roads and bridges, modernize our public transportation system with an $85 billion investment, and invest more than $200 billion to increase housing supply, address the affordable housing crisis, and upgrade low-income homes to make them more energy efficient. Congresswoman Maloney is working alongside her colleague, Transportation and Infrastructure Chairman Peter DeFazio, to expand the 2nd Avenue subway up to 125th Street, expand high-speed rail along the Northeast Corridor, and taking advantage of the soon-to-be completed East Side Access Project to build a Western Queens transit hub at Sunnyside Yards. As chairman of the House Oversight Committee, she's been working to hold Big Pharma accountable by investigating prescription drug pricing and the opioid crisis. She's also working on advancing her bipartisan postal reform bill, and also planning to reintroduce the Overdraft Act to stop the predatory practices of our major banks. Today, the Congresswoman held a hearing on the deadly January 6th attack on the Capitol and released new documents about former President Trump's pressure campaign on the Department of Justice to overturn our last presidential election. Thanks again for having me. And if you want to receive more frequent updates from our office, make sure to sign up for the newsletter through maloney.house.gov. Follow the Congresswoman on Twitter and Instagram at Republican Maloney, and on Facebook at Representative Maloney, and on Facebook at Representative Carolyn Maloney.
Thank
you very much.
Karthika Teka. Did I say that properly? Karthika? You're muted.
Yeah. Sorry, thank you, Karthika. Yeah, I am the communications coordinator for someone from Dani's office, and I'm gonna give our updates really quickly. First, happy summer, and I hope everyone has a safe and enjoyable summer. I just wanted everyone to know that the legislative year for the state ended on June 10th. The last session where bills were voted on ended at 4 a.m. on June 11th, actually. So basically from now until next January, when session is over, our office will be completely in the district, not in Albany. The only exception to that rule being if session gets called again to vote on emergency legislation, which is possible. We also have an exciting update, which is we, along with Senator Gianaris, passed a piece of legislation called the Public Participation and Rulemaking Bill. And this bill is exciting, especially for people who participate in the community board, because it's a democratizing bill that makes public meetings for state agencies more accessible. It allows state agencies to hold evening and weekend meetings to make sure that working people can attend. It allows for more direct methods of communication, like directly asking questions to people in the state agencies, and also allows for a pilot program where the 7 most common agencies, if there are a petition of 125 more people to host a hearing from those agencies will have to host a public hearing on a proposed rule. So that includes the Workers' Compensation Board, the Department of Ed, the Department of Environmental Conservation, Department of Health, Financial Services, Labor, and Family Assistance. So we're really excited about this, and excited to share that with everyone who's participating today in this meeting. And then also to remind everyone that the City Council elections are underway. Early voting is going on right now, and election day itself is Tuesday, June 22nd, and it's our first use of ranked choice voting. So you can visit vote.nyc to learn more about ranked choice voting and also to find your poll site. Our office is also happy to help if there's any confusion around ranked choice voting and how that process works. And then our final update is that the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which is a state program for rent relief, is now accepting applications. You can apply at newyorkstateRentHelp.odita.ny.gov, and I'll drop all of these links after I'm done talking in the chat. So don't worry about that, I just can't do 2 things at once. But the rental assistance program, the money goes straight to the landlords, and basically the first 30 days, which will be over at the end of this month, goes to priority groups. And almost every zip code that is in Community Board 1 is a priority group, because we count as an area that has been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. There are also other ways to be considered priority groups, including being a veteran and being at risk for eviction or having a current eviction case. But basically there's a part of the application that the tenant has to fill out, and there's a part of the application the landlord has to fill out, and both landlords and tenants can initiate this process. The application has been having a lot of problems, and to name some of them is that the application can only be filled in online, and sometimes the website has problems. And then also there's just like some technology issues and also language access issues. And our office is aware of them and is trying to get some of these issues fixed. But in the meanwhile, there is a hotline to call. People can be on hold for, we've heard, around 30 minutes, but the hotline goes straight to the Office of Temporary and Disability Service. So we do recommend calling the hotline first, but our office is also available to help with issues around the applications and questions around the application.
Thank you.
And the application itself is very easy if you're not dealing with the other issues of trying to figure out how to access it. So I'm going to drop all this information, including our office contact, in the chat. But that's it for me. Happy summer. Thank you.
Happy summer. Havis Khan. Havis.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. This is Haris Khan from New York City Controller Scott Stringer's office. I'll just drop into the chat box today a COVID-19 recovery center that we have recently released. It basically compiles a lot of the different city, state, and federal programs that were issued over the course of the past year or so during COVID-19. So it's a pretty user-friendly website. It's available in English, Spanish, and Mandarin. And feel free to use it and share it with your folks. And it's definitely more easier to remember and utilize than thinking about all the different offices that are doing a different form of relief for people who've suffered. And it has like buttons like renter, homeowner, small business, nonprofit. And it shows you which agencies are responsible for how to get in contact with them, but it's all consolidated and pretty simple to use. So I'll drop that into the chat. I'll also drop my contact information. I know it is summer recess for community boards and civic associations, but definitely not here in the office. So if anybody, or with our city agencies in general. So if there's any issues that folks have with city agencies or any way our office can be of assistance, we've got a constituent services team. You've got me as the Queensborough liaison, and I'd be happy to help. So I'll drop my contact here as well.
Thank you, Alice.
Thank you.
Mary Jo Bida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In fact, I do not have much to share, but I want to take this opportunity to wish everyone a great summer full of health, safety, and fun. And I also wish happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And I also want to let you know that our constituent service will continue the way it is. Anyone who needs to reach out to our office, our phone number is 718-205-3881. I'm also dropping, I have also in fact put the information on the chat, including our email address. Thank you again, and
Thank you,
all of
Mary.
you happy summer.
Can everybody
Yes,
please
I
mute
believe-
themselves? Someone is not muted. Jacqueline?
Thanks so much. Good to be here.
That was
everyone.
background, Marie.
I will try to be quick. I just have two main items at the top from our Community Partnerships Division. So first, District Attorney Katz, along with State Attorney General Tish James, announced that 79 guns were collected over the weekend at St. Mary Magdalene Church. This event, of course, gave gun owners the opportunity to trade in their operable firearms in return for cash cards and iPads, and was the fourth gun buyback event hosted by the office. So to this date, we have collected a total amount of 285 guns from our gun buyback events. And final update, our office has issued an RFP for qualified applicants to implement the Queens DA's Youth Development and Crime Prevention Program. These goals are to provide youth activities and wraparound services as part of a more holistic approach to increasing youth engagement in pro-social and recreational and academic and career development activities. This primarily is envisioned as a local community-driven project. So I invite everyone to visit queensda.org to read more about application submission. The deadline to submit questions about this RFP is Monday, June 28th at 5 p.m. And that's all I have from our Community Partnerships Division. And we encourage anyone to reach out with any questions on these events. And of course, I want to wish CB1 a wonderful summer. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. So unfortunately, Kathleen, would you like to take a stab at your committee report now that I overlooked you? Kathleen?
Yes, I'll make it quick. We have slight updates on some of the institutions in the community board, which is that city pools, including Astoria Park, they're outdoors open June 26th. Socrates is back to almost full programming with in-person classes every weekend for exercise and other things. Noguchi is still timed admission, but they are doing a teen summer camp in person this summer. Museum of the Moving Image is also still doing timed admissions, but is selling tickets to in-person screenings as well as online screenings. And Astoria Performing Arts Center is slowly returning to live performance, and you can see the huge neighborhood favorite, Summer Stars, with your friends and neighbors 65 and over, crooning the songs of the Gershwins on June 26th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marie, a quick comment?
Yes.
Tom Ryan.
Yes.
I just want to ask
Tom
the
Ryan.
Parks Chair, with the summer coming, that the Parks Department needs to give more attention to cleaning and emptying the garbage cans in the parks. Parks right by me, they're overflowing with garbage and they're unkept, and that's not a good thing this summer.
Okay, I believe they've had budget cuts, so we'll pass it on though. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak?
2 minutes.
Can you use the raise hand function, please? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Happy summer, everyone. Don't forget to vote between now and next week. And
great summer,
happy
everyone.
summer.
Yes, vote, 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 vote.
Happy summer, everyone.
Have a great summer.
Happy summer. Happy summer, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.